being in the room. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to our great attendees. Really exciting to see everyone in the chat sharing where you're coming from. This is the Getting to Green, a virtual forum on creating living schoolyards in Los Angeles County. And I'm Clara Sophia Gust. And on behalf of Council for Watershed Health, just want to really, again, say how much we appreciate having you all here today. We also want to thank the Land Sea Connection program of the Resource Legacy Fund, made possible by the Keith Campbell Foundation for the Environment, for supporting this event today. So our event today does have Spanish interpretation available. So these instructions are on the screen. Please select the interpretation symbol and move into that room if you so choose. So our event today is focused on Los Angeles County, but we acknowledge that this geographic area is the unceded ancestral homelands of the Gabrielino Tongva, Ventureño Chumash, Gabrielino Quiche, and Fernandeño Tataviam nations. We recognize that these tribes are still present and that they are the original stewards of this land and waters. And we make this acknowledgement out of respect for their longstanding connection to and protection of this area's watersheds. We honor their elders, both past and present, and the descendants who are citizens of these tribes. And furthermore, we uphold the responsibility to carry out actions in unceded lands that will meaningfully involve citizens of these tribes. And we encourage all of you to engage with the original stewards of these watersheds, contribute to efforts by their local tribal governments, and educate yourself and look into the actions that these tribal nations are taking as stewards of this region. So for our event today, following this introduction, we'll be moving into our first panel, which is looking at living schoolyard assets. So some of the most recent resources and models that we know of to share for thinking about what is really this process for creating living schoolyards across LA County. Panel 2 will be looking into possibilities for external partnerships. So what are models of school district and water agency partnerships? And then we'll be closing with breakout rooms by geographic watershed area. So with that, we want to ask you all, what watershed area are you representing today? So there should be a poll coming up on your screen, and your answer to this poll will be how you will be delegated into different breakout rooms at the end of today. And if you're coming from, outside LA County, we do have an option for that. If you're representing an entity that spans all of LA County, we have an option for that. And again, it's just what best represents where you're coming from today. And here's a map if that's helpful to know vaguely where you are in which watershed. Give it your best guess. I know a lot of us are moving between these areas often, but give it your best answer. All right. So as folks are answering that, who's in the room today? So we know that of the registrants who answered our polls, 28% said they were actually unfamiliar with living schoolyards. 56% don't clearly understand the process to create living schoolyards. And 60% don't clearly understand how to bring external partners into living schoolyard projects. But we know that there's great potential, right? There's 84 school districts in LA County. There's over 2 million youth in LA County. So the possibilities and the impacts of living schoolyards are big, but that also means that the scale of what could happen with thinking about an LA County-wide process is big. We also know that there are increased funding coming into the state, into the region to support these living schoolyard, green schoolyard projects. But along with that, we know that school districts need support in understanding how to be allocating these resources, where, when, how, and with whom. But what is a living schoolyard? So according to Sharon Dank's with Green Schoolyards America, I think this is a great quote of living schoolyards really are richly layered outdoor environments. They strengthen local ecological systems, providing place-based, hands-on learning resources for children and youth of all ages. They're child-centered places that foster empathy, exploration, adventure, and a wide range of play and social opportunities while enhancing health and well-being and engaging the community. Well-designed living school grounds model the ecologically rich cities we would like to inhabit at a smaller scale and teach the next generation how to live more lightly on Earth. When implemented comprehensively and citywide, living schoolyard programs have the potential to become effective components of the urban ecological infrastructure, helping their cities address many of the key environmental issues of their time. Looking to the LA Living Schoolyards Coalition here locally, their vision really is living schoolyards are beautiful green communities that reflect the needs of the families and children they serve. They're community-led, nature-based, flourishing schoolyards that are open to the public, provide opportunities for every child to thrive, play, engage, and explore. Living schoolyards are a really important part of our mission and our work as the Council for Watershed Health, because we see that living schoolyards are watershed health. So now I'm going to pass it off to Eileen Alduenda, our Executive Director of the Council for Watershed Health, to discuss how we as the Council see successful living schoolyard process and why we see this event as so important. So Eileen, I'll pass it off to you and give you control of the slide presentation, or I can help click through if you'd like.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and click through? It might be a little bit quicker that way. And let's just hold here for a minute as I say good morning to everyone. It's great to see so many familiar faces and so many new ones. I want to expand on Clara Sophia's welcome and introduce the Council for Watershed Health to those of you who are joining us for the first time, and maybe refresh for some of those that it's been a while since you've connected with us. We're a nonprofit organization working to advance the health and sustainability of our region's watersheds, both in natural areas and in urban neighborhoods. Over the years, our work has evolved and our efforts today are focused in 3 areas. And Clara Sophia, if you can go to the next slide, we'll show a picture of these efforts in practice and in schoolyards. We do this outside of schoolyards, but given that our focus today is schoolyards, our focus areas are in monitoring both natural systems and urban green infrastructure projects on school campuses, education and engagement, which includes tours, publications, and convenings, both small and large like today's, which might be one of our largest in attendance today, over 300 people, as I understand. I think we're working out an issue though to let people in. And then technical assistance, where we develop and connect folks to resources for decision-making and where we're helping to develop the expertise and capacity of school districts, small municipalities, and community-based organizations to plan and implement community-led green stormwater infrastructure and climate resiliency projects. And these are done primarily in under-resourced communities. So our convening today continues the efforts of our founder, Dorothy Green, who more than 25 years ago brought together different perspectives and entities to share and learn from each other, and then to work towards healthier watersheds and healthier communities. Given our focus today is on the mini watershed that are school campuses, I want to make sure that we're cognizant of the students that we really are keeping in mind for these efforts and the members of the school and the greater community. School greening is a critical strategy toward improving the health of our watersheds and communities and for redesign our neighborhoods to be climate resilient. First, if you can go to the next slide. We'll see an example at Eagle Rock Elementary School. It's one of the first school greening projects that we learned about as we were learning how to do and how to coordinate efforts around school greening. There are many local efforts focused on school greening, and there's a lot of great research out there that's been providing us with evidence that school greening has direct benefits for students in academic performance, in physical health, mental health, and social and emotional development. And we know, even without that research, instinctively, we know that our kids, that our students deserve living green schoolyards. And it's their perspectives and voices that we're missing here today. So I want to ask that we keep them front and center throughout the morning. It's for their benefit that we need to prioritize our efforts around school greening projects. And we really need to make sure that those school greening projects are where they spend most of their day, prioritizing that effort first within the schoolyard, as well as the importance of the outside of the schoolyard too. So we're here to kind of think through, how do we get to green? What does that look like? And Clara Sophia, if you can go to the next slide. We know that there are many ways to getting to greener schoolyards, and many lessons learned along the way. We've learned some that are here. And again, I want to highlight that the student-centered and watershed approach ensures school greening projects are located where students are interacting with healthy ecosystems throughout their day, both informally and formally, and mainly through curriculum connections. And it doesn't take much to get started, but it takes a successful process. And we're excited to learn from our speakers what they're learning. And we'd like to hear from you what makes a good school, what makes for a successful school greening process. So in the chat, I see there's more people coming in now. So as new folks are coming in, please introduce yourself, let us know where you're coming from. And throughout the day, as you reflect on the lessons that you've learned or that you're learning, what makes for a successful school greening process, if you can add that in the chat, we'll compile these and share these out. And with that, I'll pass it back to Clara Sophia to get us introduced to our first panel. Clara Sophia, I think you still might be on mute.
Sorry about that. I did not have unmuting permission for a minute there. But thank you so much, Eileen. We are going to now launch into panel one. I'm so excited to introduce them all to you. So we'll be having presentations from each of our panelists and then moving into a discussion. And so first we'll be having Pacific Institute talking about their report looking at the potential for capturing stormwater on schools across LA County. We have Shannon stepping in on behalf of Sonali today. We also have Earth Economics talking about the economic benefits of school greening and really trying to put an economic value to these benefits. We have Monica Campagna talking about this model, a novel maintenance model of a school foundation partnering with a school district with Glendale Unified. And then we have Cindy Harden and Emily Kobar with Nature Nexus Institute, who are really going to drive home the potential for curriculum connections and the benefits to kids with these systems. But first, I want to introduce our moderator who will be coming in for the panel discussion at the end. We have Michaela Randolph today, Senior Watershed Specialist with Heal the Bay. So she'll be moderating the discussion at the end of these presentations. So first we have evaluating stormwater capture and use on schools in LA County. With Pacific Institute, we have Shannon Spurlock here today, again stepping in on behalf of Sonali, who unfortunately couldn't join us due to a case of the flu. But we're really glad to have Shannon here today. So Shannon, I will give you screen control and let you get started.
Great. Thank you so much, Clara Sophia, and welcome everyone. I'm excited to be presenting to you today, but so I'm excited to be here on behalf of Sonali, though I wish she was here and did not have the flu. In her stead, we've been working on this project together, and so I will do my very best to represent this as she would have, and any questions and follow-up, we are both happy to take those. So both Sonali and I are senior researchers with the Pacific Institute. My role is around public policy and practice uptake. And we have been looking at stormwater capture and use and that potential. Let me see, make sure. So it's not letting me forward slides. there we go. Thank you. So both of us have been working not in LA County as well as nationally around the potential for stormwater capture and use. And so the Pacific Institute has, we're a national and global organization. We're based out of Oakland, and we have 4 priority areas, and stormwater really solidly fits in, I would say, actually all of them. But for the purposes of in LA County, it really fits under our priorities of water and climate equity, nature-based solutions, depending how a school may choose to, what strategies they might use to really advance stormwater capture on their grounds for the purposes of greening. For us, stormwater falls under the reuse portion of the water efficiency and reuse. And then our last one is corporate water stewardship. So those are the 4 areas that we focus on. And in the past, actually, through Resource Legacy Fund that Clara Sophia brought up earlier, we were looking at Measure W in LA County, or the Safe Clean Water program, to understand what has been put forth, what has been funded, who was funded, and what was the makeup of those projects. And so a little background for some of you who may not be as familiar, Measure W is a 2.5-cent parcel tax based on per square foot of private land in LA County. And it sets aside funding annually to support projects that advance stormwater capture and use for the purpose of, I would say, polishing stormwater, cleaning it before discharge. And so of the projects that have come forth to be funded to advance the purpose of Measure W, only 6 of the 101 funded projects create new park space or green a school. The second largest landholder in LA County is LA Unified School District. And of the funds, of the projects that they put forth 10 applications. I would say none of those were funded. Actually, one of them was ultimately funded and then they withdrew it due to complications. But from a school perspective side, it's challenging. The projects that have been funded that look at advancing greening on schools have had strong partnerships led by NGO partners. So in this, and actually, I think Earth Economics might be expanding on this a little bit more with Jackson Elementary, though I haven't spoken to Laura about this. So if I have misspeaking, please forgive me. But I want to highlight one of the sites where we did see the funding of stormwater capture and use on site, and that's Jackson Elementary. And this was in partnership with Amigos de los Rios. And really what it looked at are kind of multiple benefit outcomes at a school where not only were they capturing stormwater on site and using it, but they were also greening a schoolyard, contributing toward the mitigation of urban heat island effects, and providing engaging educational student spaces for their students. Actually, I want to go back here real quickly. One thing I think that's interesting here is when we talk about site transformation from more heavily asphalt to a greening of the space, I want to kind of lay the groundwork here to say, and I think this will be addressed by other presenters later on, there are always trade-offs, right? And sometimes when you put forth strategies like this, someone is bound to say, well, what about operations and maintenance costs? You know, what about the other maybe resource intensive outcomes that could come along with this? And I think those are reasonable questions. But what I also really want to highlight here is that we're looking at multiple benefit inputs and outcomes. And it's really important to understand the value of multiple benefit outcomes, such as the mitigation of urban heat islands, such as greater engaging green spaces for students. And what does that mean? So just something to keep in mind as we think about this paradigm shift of what our schoolyards currently are for the most part and what they actually can be and how we tell that story. sorry, so there's a slight delay in advancing. So one of the things that this work is built off of as it relates to our stormwater is that last year we did a statewide assessment in California looking at, well, what is the potential for stormwater capture? To what extent can we increase our existing water supplies if we look at strategies like stormwater capture, reuse, and efficiency? And stormwater is a very compelling strategy. When you look at the South Coast and any time from like low precipitation years to high precipitation years, what that actually means for increasing resilience in individual watersheds. Specific to LA County, we're going to talk about a few things and the work that we're doing. One, I want to highlight one thing here. We have a few key partners in this area for this project, including Council for Watershed Health and Trust for Public Land, LA. When we originally did that background research for Measure W, the Safe Clean Water Program, and looked at who was funded and the percentages or lack thereof of schools that were funded, we saw public space and schools in particular come across as a major opportunity to look at advancing the mission and goals of Measure W. And we said, okay, and how can you kind of really pair these two efforts, right? We don't have enough green space at schools. We have highly urbanized areas, not just green space at schools for students, but often these spaces are used by the community after school hours. How can we look at the co-benefits and outcomes on school grounds and align them with Measure W? So we dug into that, and these are some of the key questions that we asked, right? So what is the volumetric amount of stormwater that can be captured on school grounds? What additional co-benefits can be gained through the greening of schools? And how do we connect those back to the beneficiaries who will ultimately receive those benefits? When we look at estimating that volumetric amount, we partnered with Second Nature and a tool that they created called Rain Steward. So in this, the opportunities and barriers, these are some of the ones that kind of rose to the top. And one of the earlier slides when you look at is funding or opportunities for co-funding. I want to highlight that as something that comes across this slide under opportunities. It's in the third bullet, and it says owner benefits, reduces cost, management issues on site. And so the opportunity, when we talk about reducing costs, often we see that some of the benefits in one area, such as say stormwater capture and use in this space, it has benefits in other areas. Does it intersect? How does it intersect with the school district, with parks and recreation, depending on where it's located? How does it intersect with transportation? And so there are ways when we think about the projects and how the strategy is incorporated on school grounds, who is able to share those costs? And that goes to multiple benefits to multiple parties. And then on the barriers, one thing I want to just highlight and bring to light is that, as Sonali has it written out here, highly regulated spaces. So, and actually, and to Eileen's earlier point, students are the focus. They are the number one kind of audience here. How do we green spaces that create the best educational spaces for students, enhance stormwater capture and use, and create neighborhoods that are thriving spaces for the people who live, work, study there? And in these spaces, sometimes the existing regulations make it hard to do that. And so thinking about, what could flexibility in this space look like? What are the opportunities of stormwater capture and use on school grounds for the purpose of school greening? And how might they outweigh or mitigate any associated risks that may be associated in that space? I feel like I'm speaking to the choir a little bit here, and some of, many people on this call are very familiar with a number of the multiple benefits of stormwater management, but just to draw them out and make that very apparent. These are all the same benefits that we can see on school grounds when urban greening is a strategy that can be promoted through stormwater capture and use. Everything from healthier soils to shade to rain gardens, demonstrating climate appropriate plantings and landscapes. And I have to say, one of the things that I get really excited about with this is that this is an active and passive way to engage students in their community as far as the resources that are available to them, natural resources, and also how to be really good stewards of those natural resources. So what we hope to do, I feel like I've been talking around many reasons with our project, but the assessment for this volumetric potential on school grounds in LA County is to look at the volumetric potential for stormwater on school grounds. What is that number? And then understand, when we look at that, can we quantify the amount of stormwater pollution that can be mitigated on an annual basis? One thing that we want to be able to do, we're able to put different layers in the mapping and really highlight environmental justice communities, and those communities that often are hit with some of the greatest, most detrimental impacts from an unmanaged stormwater, the flooding, heat island, the negative effects that can come across in urbanized areas. And in addition to the environmental justice layer, also think about, of the sites where we look at the opportunities for stormwater capture and use based on kind of frontline communities, the quantity, also look at what we would call that kind of community uplift or community benefit bucket as well. And looking at metrics such as water supply benefits, water quality benefits, flood risk mitigation benefits, and community uplift or greening benefits. This is something that we will be working with Second Nature on through that Rain Steward tool. And it's actually a pretty amazing tool. And it will help us go through and kind of prioritize certain elements and how they're weighted. So if a community's primary driver for stormwater management is looking at, say, mitigating flood risk versus increasing water quality, you can weigh it for that and prioritize appropriately. The one thing I haven't spelled out until this point that I want to say is the Pacific Institute is a nonpartisan research organization. And in this research and analysis for the volumetric potential of stormwater on school grounds and how it can contribute to school greening, our hope is that we can create a report, a tool that can benefit our partners who are working on the ground to advance and implement school greening. So for example, our role is typically not to come alongside the individual schools or school district, but to partner with organizations like Council for Watershed Health, Trust for Public Land LA, and any of you who may be listening today working in this space to say, how can we help make school greening projects more competitive for funding so that they are successful and we can see these strategies actualized. Funding, for example, through Measure W, through the Safe Clean Water program, and other funding sources as well. It is our goal through this project to provide an evidence-based approach that strengthens proposals and helps advance equity and water stewardship in this space. So with that, I've kind of spoken around those kind of the three ways in which we hope to really benefit school districts and community-based organizations. But with that, I'll wrap it up and hand it back over to Clara Sophia. I will have to jump off early for the call today, but I'm happy if there are any questions that can be put into the chat or sent directly onto Sonali. She can we'll share them and work on them together, I'm happy to address those. And in the meantime, thank you for including us as part of this presentation today.
Thank you so much, Shannon. All right, next we have Laura Villegas, who's a senior researcher with Earth Economics. And I do just want to add before I pass it on to Laura that on our event website, which we can post in the chat, we do have all of the speaker bios posted. So if you want to learn more about each of our speakers, please make sure to check that out. But Laura, I will pass it on to you to talk about measuring the benefits of school greening. So I'm giving you screen control now.
Okay, let's see. This is always the hardest thing. Here we go. You guys can see my screen now, I think. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura, and I'm an economist. I'm really excited to be here. I loved hearing what Shannon had to share. I have so many questions, and I really wish we can be in the loop to see how this rain store tool turns out. I think I'm going to get ahead of myself, but good morning, everybody. So I'm tuning in from Idaho, the ancestral lands of the Shoshone Paiute. I'm currently an economist, a senior researcher at Earth Economics. We are an ecological economics research center, which is actually pretty special. We do a lot of things, but let's say that our bread and butter is building an economic case to take care of nature and take care of one another. And I think we all agree here that that's the right thing to do and the best thing to do. But sometimes we or other people who are going to approve our projects get bogged down by the economics of projects or programs. And I say economics in quotations because in my experience, when people say, oh, what are the economics? Show me the economics. They mean, what's it going to cost me? What are the costs? And they're missing a very important piece of the equation, which is the benefits. There are economic benefits to these things. So that's kind of what I do and what we do at Earth Economics. We translate these biophysical and social benefits, for example, the capture of stormwater, and we turn them into economics terms or units, dollar signs, so that decision makers have the complete information to make a sound, real economic decision. In the end, someone's going to ask you, what's going to be the return on investment? Is this going to be cost effective? And something that I really want to emphasize is that in the particular case of green schoolyards, this approach of comparing costs of public projects to social and environmental benefits, it's absolutely appropriate because we're speaking public dollars to public dollars, which sometimes becomes a little problematic when you're looking at like private investment options. But in this case, it's absolutely appropriate. Public schools are providing community value. Okay, so that's what we do. Whenever it makes sense, because you don't always need to make an economic argument, we translate these environmental and social benefits into economics terms to raise awareness. And our hypothesis is that this helps mobilize resources, which kind of comes to that last idea that Shannon shared. We want to make these projects competitive to get funding. And I really want to know, after I share my presentation, if you think that having a dollar sign attached to what you think are going to be the benefits of your project is going to help you raise money, because that's kind of what we run on. That's our assumption. And I really like to hear what you guys have to think about it. Okay. So I've been in Earth Economics for about 3 years, and we've had 4 research projects in LA County. The one I want to talk to you about today is the very last one. In a nutshell, in that project, we put our econ lenses and we examined the experience that Amigos de los Rios had in their Watershed Discovery Campus project in Altadena that Shannon briefly described. We learned so much from this collaboration that it really would be unfair and it's impossible to represent all that we learned in this 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to try to narrow down the story and focus on how to measure things, because I think we're all looking for ideas on how to communicate the benefits of schoolyards to a project evaluator, or quite honestly, an algorithm. Sometimes it's just a form that you need to fill out, and it's going to be a computer that's going to decide whether or not you get the money. And that computer is not going to hear stories. So I hope this presentation is thought-provoking and it can ignite a discussion around values, metrics, and data, which is the space that we work in. So what are the values that are driving your project? What metrics can help you evaluate if your project is serving those values? And what data do you need to develop those metrics? And kind of what I was asking you, is that metric going to help you gather additional support or bring in additional funding? So with that, let me start. This is what I want to guide you through today. Very high level overview of our partnership, the project, a description of the project. And where I want to spend the most time is discussing how we went about identifying and deciding how to measure the benefits associated with the Schoolyards. And I hope to end with some concluding thoughts that may help some of you. Okay, so really quickly, this project started because one of our earlier collaborations in LA County with Accelerate Resilience Los Angeles, we interviewed Claire Robinson, who's going to speak in the second panel. And we heard that she knew a thing or two about multi-benefit projects in LA County through the Emerald Necklace effort. So we thought we'd talk to her. And we were absolutely humbled. She is so knowledgeable, and we were so impressed by the work that was happening. Oh, I think I'm cutting through, but okay. That we nominated them for an award that Earth Economics gives to work pro bono with community-based organizations. It's called Ingrid Rash Legacy Fund Award, and they won. So we got to do our first project. I think I'm cutting through. I'm gonna go. How do I turn off my video? Maybe that will help. Or let me see. Well, I'm just gonna keep going. But anyway, so they won, and and we got to work with Schoolyards, our first project. And we've been wanting to enter this space because the Schoolyards are right at the center or the intersection between health, education, equity, and sustainability. And these are all pillars of economic and social systems in the world of social economics. So with this project, we set out to assess social, environmental, and economic benefits of the Watershed Discovery Campus in Altadena. Here, I'm just showing you the area of the Mary W. Jackson Elementary School. That's where the project is located. And there's, as you can see, not a whole lot of green near the school. We looked at the LA County Parks and Recs Park Needs Assessment, and we found that even for LA County standards, the region is not doing very well in terms of green spaces. And here I also have some numbers around access to green spaces and then excess heat, because green space and heat are related, and both are related to children's health and playtime, and those are related to family and community well-being. And then you see how you just never do just one thing when you're tackling something important. Okay, so this is a picture of the main campus before and after the greening. And in 2021, so just post-pandemic, Amigos de los Rios began working on this project, and they leveraged funding from multiple sources, and Claire's going to speak about the benefit of that. And it was an effort to transform. So I've heard the word transformation quite a bit. Transform this barren landscape that looked like many other schools in LA County into beautiful, and I also heard beautiful, and stimulating outdoor space for education. And through the project, they integrated, as Shannon said, nature-based solutions for stormwater management, climate resilience, and they created also a more harmonious environment for students and for teachers. Okay, so maybe, I hope you guys can see this well. These are the plans for that transformation. And there are detailed list of the changes, exactly how many square feet of asphalt were replaced, how many trees and what species were planted, the size of the edible garden, because they did have a fruit edible garden. And anyway, but in summary, with this campus, they replaced the majority of the schoolyard's impervious surfaces with permeable surfaces. And on top of these natural infrastructure pieces, the project retrofitted some low impact drainage features that would slow and store stormwater. Okay, So to the benefits. We have here some examples of the types of benefits, and I believe most of you are going to be familiar with these already, but we have, as mentioned, outdoor educational and recreational space, which COVID taught us is not just a nice to have, it's a must have. We have stimulating and safe outdoor spaces. This is going to help the kids develop their coordination, their physical abilities, and their social skills. We have accessibility play space for children with injuries and disabilities, which we don't talk about enough. Shade and cooler spaces to play, habitat for pollinators and birds. There's, of course, the runoff capture, improved soil quality that comes with that. Better stormwater management, and so less pools of water, fewer mosquitoes, less diseases. There's going to be building energy savings because of the shade that's provided by the trees. Reduced exposure to contaminants through the capture of that polluted water. Healthy foods through the edible garden. Resources for sciences and cooking classes, civic engagement, and actually, we think workforce development opportunities for volunteers, because believe it or not everybody knows how to use a shovel. There may be even some groundwater recharge benefits. All this and more, including a new connection to nature and a new space to connect with others. Okay, so that's a lot of benefits. That's a good thing. And so how do we tell this to a computer or an evaluation form? That's what you're going to see to give you funds for your project. And here's where I think our experience may help some of you. But again, this is based on the assumption that these numbers are actually helpful. And I really want to hear from you on that. Okay, so what we do is we follow this particular approach to measuring things that's grounded on this framework that's called the ecosystem services framework. They basically, gives us a language to talk about benefits of green schoolyards or whatever project you may have in a consistent manner. So in general, the idea is that we can use the value of ecosystem services to summarize the impact of a project. And we can use this responsively and adaptively so that the results accompany the story rather than reduce it to a few numbers. Okay, so I believe most of you will be familiar with this. Ecosystem services are, in general, all benefits that humans derive from nature: clean air, clean water, open space for playing, open space for relaxing, shade to cool down, foods that make us healthy, all these things. And the big assumption is that we can measure those things and estimate a price. And here I want to be very clear that I say price and not value, because we're not saying, oh, this is what they're worth. We're just saying this is what they would sell for in the market if there was a market for them. So what we did is we used that ecosystem service approach and adapted it to the green schoolyards case. And we identified 4 areas of value provided by the green schoolyard: environment, community. Oh, I wonder if I can move this. Okay, well, you can't see this other one. We have health and wellness, and then the other one is learning. And we matched the ecosystem services that supported those values. So here, for example, you can see air quality is part of the environment, and water quality, runoff management, water supply, climate stability. We had it here, an intersection between these two. And so and then we used our measurement methods, which is kind of an art form at this point, really, to come up with what we think is a defensible estimate of how much it would cost society to provide the benefits that the green schoolyard in Altadena is generating. And I'm not going to go in detail of exactly how we go about calculating these numbers, because it's pretty technical and may not be everybody's cup of tea. But if you want to know more, I really do want to hear from you, because we're planning on having some webinars to teach community-based organizations and practitioners how to put these numbers together. So yeah, I'll have my contact information at the end. And this is a summary of the results. And I think it actually does a good job showing the flow from changes to the landscape to benefits. So the first row here, this first flow, it shows you how the landscape changed. So for instance, originally there was plenty of asphalt, and some of it continued to be asphalt, but a lot of that turned into pervious pavement, landscape areas, wood fiber, etc. And then the second flow shows you those land covers or features relate or generate benefits. And the type of benefit here we have like runoff management, and the depth of this bar can tell you the magnitude of the benefit. So for example, here you can see the new trees. Well, that's kind of the big story. If when in doubt, plant a tree, essentially. And this is showing you in annual terms. So that's the benefit per year. So for example, we estimate that the benefit of the runoff management is over $14,000 per year. And we try to be very conservative in our estimates, so that would be a low bound. Here on the far right, I think it's important to show there's additional benefits that we couldn't quantify. So this is not a silver bullet. There's things that we can't measure, not in monetary terms, either because there's no data or there's no literature to make assumptions from, or the results just are not really easy to translate into dollar signs, or it wouldn't be appropriate to do so. So there are things that we recognize as benefits, that they have a value for sure, but we just couldn't quite get to a price if there was a market for them. This is straight from the fact sheet that produced that I'm going to put a link to, and it just summarizes the main points from the analysis. I think the gist is that even understanding we couldn't measure everything, and that we chose the most conservative numbers, the benefits provided by the Schoolyard surpass the costs of developing it. And the ratio we have is 3.6. So $1 that you invest, you get 3.6 in return. The second point I think is interesting because, and Shannon mentioned this in her presentation, we identified beneficiaries. Like, it's not just going to be students and school staff that are interacting with these features that are going to benefit, but also the broader community is going to experience some of those benefits. For instance, having a more beautiful neighborhood. And also the school district may experience some of those benefits. For example, reducing operation cost and maybe even increasing enrollment and attendance as this is a more beautiful space, for example. And lastly, we did this mental exercise. What happens if you open the green yard, the school green yard, green schoolyard after school hours or on the weekends? And we compare what it would cost to operate and manage that with the benefits that it would produce. And we found that actually you come like even cost-wise if you only let 40 people per month use the ground. So it's pretty cost-effective to open it to the broader public. All right, and just very quickly to conclude, I think sadly we live with this like institutional paradigm where if something is not counted, then it doesn't count. So we believe in Earth economics that counting things and putting them on dollar signs can bring in that second piece of the equation, the benefits, right? We understand costs really well. But now when you have the benefit piece as well, now you have a complete picture and you can make a better decision. So I presented you this framework. Is not the only one, it's not perfect. It may work for you. And I think that I invite you to ask yourselves those questions. Would that framework serve your purpose? Is it consistent with your values and objectives? And then do you have time to design like a data collection plan for determining the baselines, for example, and other parameters that you need to measure these things? But yeah, so I think it all kind of starts from the beginning. What are your values? What indicators will help you evaluate if you're serving those values? What data do you need to form those indicators? And who's going to be to the indicator that you're sharing? Yeah, and so I think that's where I want to end. You can contact us if you have questions. I really do want to hear from you. If you're interested in the webinars that I mentioned earlier, Yeah, so that's what I got. This is us, and this is me when I had short hair. Clara Sophia, I think this is it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Laura. I'm gonna go back to sharing here. Yeah, that was so helpful and interesting. And definitely if anyone has questions, please be posting them in the chat and we will try our best to get to as many of them in the discussion period as possible. But now I'm going to introduce Monica Campagna. She's the lead caretaker for Franklin Elementary native plant beds. And we'll be sharing a really interesting and inspiring model of maintenance that's now been in practice for several years with Glendale Unified School District. So Monica, I will give you slide control and pass it off to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Clara Sophia, and thank you, Laura, for that wonderful presentation. My name is Monica Campagna, and I'm really delighted to be here with you all today. Just couldn't be more honored to speak with such a diverse group of people working to green our schools. It's just, thank you for the platform. I am going to give you a little bit of a boots on the ground perspective as the lead caretaker over at Franklin Elementary. And I'd like to start off, just give you a little bit of information about myself and how I got involved over there. I was a parent at the school and got involved very early on with caring for the trees and things that were already at the school that the foundation had helped the school district get planted. And I started volunteering consistently and got involved with greening the lunchroom as well. And I'll give you a larger history of how our campus got converted, but I was a volunteer for years, probably 5 or 6 years until COVID hit. And then at that time, our foundation made, I think, a very smart decision to begin paying me and another caretaker for our time, partly so that we could go onto campus during the shutdown, but also because they understood how important it was to have a consistent caretaking crew, and they wanted to retain us. My child had already moved on 2 years prior, but he left and I never did. The school campus, all that it offers the kids and the staff, it's probably one of the best things in my life. It means a lot to me, and I have a firm commitment to keeping the garden thriving over there. But I also know that eventually one day, I'll have to move on. So this was a way to make sure that there was always going to be someone there in charge. I will hopefully through this presentation give you a bit of information that will inspire you on how to create a model that might work for your school if you're involved with a school. And I hope it sparks a discussion on how grant funding might be used to create more green teams like the one that I'm part of at the school. So here we go. Our campus was like most school campuses, lots of asphalt, very hot. And in 2016, our campus underwent a transformation. It was paid for in part by a $1 million Prop 84 funded urban greening grant administered by the California Natural Resources Agency. We have a large campus. I'd say it's about 4 or 5 acres, and almost all of it was transformed in some way into about 3 different areas: our main campus area, our Kinderland area, which is specifically for the kindergartners, and our Sprouts Learning Garden area. So 45,000 square feet of asphalt surfaces were removed and replaced with rain gardens and bioswales, permeable paving, decomposed granite, water capture systems. And now, instead of sheeting off into the street, into the storm drains and right over to the LA River, which is a few blocks away from us, the water now stays on campus. It percolates down to refill our groundwater, capture systems, and it nurtures our plants. These are the bioswales in action this last winter. As you know, we had tons of rain, so it was exciting to see them working, and they really did fill up. And yeah, it was amazing. So I have to acknowledge this project just would never have happened if it wasn't for the tenaciousness and stewardship of 3 moms at the school. They formed the Benjamin Franklin Elementary Foundation and our Green Team, in large part to be able to write the grant and accept the grant funding. This was a partnership from the start between the foundation, Glendale Unified School District, Northeast Trees, and NAC Architecture. The whole process took about 5 years. Only one mom's child got to play on the campus. The rest of their kiddos had graduated before ground was broken, but we really are forever in their debt. And we also are very grateful to our school district and a few key champions in the facilities department in particular that took a leap of faith on this project and decided to trust in our unique caretaking model. Now, Northeast Trees installed and collaborated on the design of our campus. They helped with the grant writing and they were responsible for the installation. Much of the initial planting was also done with the help of the Green Team under their guidance. We now have over 1,500 native California plants and trees. And, you know, we've created a place for peace, beauty, shade, food for the songbirds, pollinators, monarch butterflies, and we support our region's unique biodiversity. There are many species that have evolved with these native plants, and this is the only food source they have. The whole place is a living science lab that the kids and the staff enjoy deeply. It's much cooler, it smells great, and it's truly enjoyable place to spend time. Whenever I see a kid that gets stressed out, I have them come over and take a whiff of the sage. You know, you just really feel better instantly. We also have the Sprouts Learning Garden area. This area has a teacher a garden educator that is supported by the foundation from a separate budget. All the students in the school get to rotate through for several weeks of science-based curriculum lessons each year. So what I'm really here to talk about today is our maintenance model, and it is a partnership. Caring for this investment is a partnership, and that's why it works. Under the terms of our grant, the Foundation's Green Team is entrusted to care for and nurture our new campus for the next 20 years. And yes, I use the word nurture intentionally. The Foundation raises funds annually to support Green Team expenses. Our annual budget is about $5,000 to $7,000 per year. That's really all it takes. This goes to paying 2 lead caretakers and 2 helper caretakers for a total of 10 hours of work per week at $15 per hour. And this money goes to my annual treks up to Theodore Payne to buy new plants and trees. And this budget item is less each year now, as our campus probably is running out of spots for new plants. Plus, I propagate things, and there are new baby plants popping up that I like to move around and give to other schools as well. But each year, there are a certain amount of things that die back, or they get stepped on, or they get smashed with one too many handballs. And I'm always learning what does best in our clay soil here and our hot conditions in Glendale. The funding also goes to buy gardening equipment. It goes for educational signage that's spread around the campus. It goes for training workshops for our paid caretakers, and it goes for educational workshops for the kids and for things that need replacing in our Sprouts Learning Garden. So this is our team. There are 5 of us now. I know the slide says 4, but we just yesterday agreed to split our helper caretaker hours into 2, as we have 2 eager kindergarten parents who are ready to take on that role. And our golden rule is you never turn away a kindergarten parent. They're going to be there for a long time. So we have Abby. She's our Foundation Green Team lead, who's a parent at the school and volunteers her time. And our lead paid caretakers are me and John. And then we have our helper caretakers, Kenan and Christina. Everyone but me is a current parent at the school. And yes, that's me laying on a big pile of weeds. You know, it rained a lot last year. And we were getting ready to be part of the Theodore Payne Garden Tour. So we had to look our best. We work on our own schedules. John and I work for about 4 hours a week each, although John, you know, he always does more than he's paid to do. And Ken and Christina, they take turns doing a few hours each week and volunteering as they like outside of that. We have many parent volunteers who get trained by Abby, and they come in when they can, usually with Abby or with one another, to work on things like pulling weeds and other tasks, which we specify in our WhatsApp thread, which has proven a great tool to communicate with each other. Our green team crew of 5 is responsible for maintaining the native plants, mulching, and reporting any irrigation or other issues to the district. We weed, we prune, we mulch, we buy and plant new plants, we divide and transplant plants, we weave vines into the fencing, we water new plants, we help our custodian with sweeping the mulch and the leaf litter back into the garden beds. One of us is likely to be there most days of the week, interacting with the kids and staff as we work and giving little science lessons with every interaction. Sometimes we let the kids help us too, because they really do love to help. They see how much this place means to us, and that in turn, I think, roots in them a sense of value for their campus. They also, of course, love their campus for their own reasons, and they're always coming up to us and thanking us for making it so beautiful for them. They're always exploring it, and they love searching for the monarch caterpillars. We have a lot of milkweed. They love looking for the little harlequin beetles, and they even like to draw on the pavement with the toyon berries, which I think is really sweet. They're always finding new things in the garden, and we hope that if they get to experience this connection to nature now, that day in and day out during their elementary school years, that they will seek to protect nature when they are adults. Abby's duties as Green Team Chair, she does a lot. She's the liaison with the Parent Foundation, and she makes sure the ship is pointed in the right direction. Her energy is often spent making the connection between the campus and the parent community and the student community. She trains and organizes the parent volunteers. She organizes the large volunteer events. She works with the teachers and principal to bring in educational opportunities for the students. And she responds to the needs of the Sprouts Learning Garden teacher. She runs our vermicomposting program, which I began years ago, and she took over, giving classes to the TK and kinder kids. She creates and disseminates our monthly, they're very beautiful garden e-newsletters that she does, and she gives those to the teachers and the volunteers. And that serves to sort of educate people about the value of the native plants and connect them to what's happening each, different month of the year. She makes sure that the caretakers get paid, and she makes sure we have all the tools and supplies that we need for the garden. She's a champ. And GUSD Facilities is our partner in all of this. They take care of all of the areas of the school that existed before the transformation. So for us, that's mostly the exterior and some of the perimeter areas. They will come in and help us prune the trees. And also, if we need help with the deer grasses pruning, they will help us with that. If we need help with certain things, we just ask and they will help us. Sometimes of year we have a huge piles of tree prunings or weeds that we can't fit in our green bins, and they'll pick them up and take them off to their district yard. We do try to keep most of our prunings on campus. So anything like, that we're pruning, we cut up into little pieces, and that becomes mulch. The district's irrigation specialist, he's responsible for addressing any irrigation issues that we bring to his attention. He'll go through and test the system with me about once a year. One tip I will give is if you're doing a complex irrigation system, which we were lucky enough to have at Franklin, just make sure that it's programmed from the start to be as flexible as possible. The needs of the plants do shift as they mature, and you also want to be able to have a few different watering schedules available for different areas. So sometimes, plants may still need it once a week, but oftentimes after a while, they only need it every 2 or 3 weeks. And it's actually bad for them to get too much water, especially in the summer. So the GUSD and FOSSO crew, they are tasked with cleaning out the storm drains once per year. And the GUSD custodians on campus help us blow back the mulch into the beds, as sometimes it does get kicked out when the kids, you know, they're running after a ball or they're looking for a shortcut. So I cannot speak highly enough of our other partner, Northeast Trees. And George Balteria and his crew, they've been steadfast partners since the campus went in over 7 years ago. They come in multiple times per year and participate in our big cleanup events. They help us brainstorm little mini projects. They come if I ever have any issues I need help with. They're part of our tree planting events when we have them. This is a type of partner, someone you can continue to call on for guidance or assistance that really helps these projects be successful. And we really are so grateful to them. George is on this Zoom today, I think, and he'll be able to participate in the discussion period in case you have any questions for him. And I know some of his teammates are here too. We are delighted that our campus transformation and this trust that we've built up between Northeast Trees and the district and our green team has inspired the district to work on more grants with Northeast Trees to green more schools that really desperately need it. Finally, each year we have a huge cleanup, spruce up, mulch event. Usually it's in April. Last year we had about 70 plus parents and kids come by, gloves in hand, and they came to help spread mulch, pick up trash, sweep, and pull the weeds. This campus means a lot to them too, and it's a way of giving back. We hold this event on the weekend so that working parents are more likely to be able to come. And Northeast Trees does often come as well to volunteer, and our fabulous principal is often greeting everyone at the gate. I know one of our earlier speakers, many have actually spoken about the value of these campuses, and I can promise you that there are many parents who want to come to this school specifically because of how this campus is, how this campus looks. So it's an attractive thing for that too. I'd like to just wrap up my little session here with a few good resources, or a few resources I hope you think are good. I've included an annual Green Team to-do list that we have, just so you can sort of see what we do each month. I'm working on a selection of native plants that are easy care and trees for school campuses based on our experiences over the last 7 years. I was focused on things that stay evergreen and don't need too much pruning and that grow well in our conditions here in Glendale. This plant palette would also work well for parkway strips and parks as well. So I hope you'll take a look, and I will be making that look nicer as time goes by. Yeah, I really hope that you found this presentation helpful in some way, and I hope you'll keep this model in mind. With support from an expert like Northeast Trees, you can make these future projects doable and able to thrive. And all it takes is really about $5,000 a year and a good team. So thank you all for listening, and thank you to the Council for Watershed Health for inviting me to be part of this valuable panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. That was a great presentation. All right, next we're going to move on to Nature Nexus Institute. So we have Cindy Harden and Emily Kobar co-presenting for us today. So I'm going to pass it off to you both. Cindy, I'll start with giving you slide control, and then let me know if you want me to pass it off to you, Emily.
Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We are both staff members of Nature Nexus Institute. My title is Director of Outdoor Education. My primary duties are I am the field trip lady, and I coordinate field trips throughout the school year and also in the summer for anywhere between 2,500 and 3,000 students a year. We serve several districts, primarily LAUSD, and grade to 8th grade, although I do high school sometimes. All of my school field trips also include a pre-site visit to the campuses. So I am very familiar in our local school districts, and just how much asphalt and concrete there is and how little green space. So I'm very excited to be a part of this with the hope that we can make some changes. Emily?
Yes, hi, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily, and I'm the community along with the field trip programs we do in the Baldwin Hills, Parklands, at Bayona Wetlands, at Dockwater Beach. We also do habitat restoration in the Baldwin Hills Parklands. So we do that through collaborations, and we do that through public community events. So we really focus on awareness and access to nature through education programs and through hands-on habitat restoration programs. And I also work with West LA College as well.
Okay. Emily, should we move on?
So,
okay. Okay. So
great.
The title is Schoolyard Greening for the Planet and the People, because it serves both. Emily, you want to talk a little bit about this slide? It's so beautiful.
Yes, and I have another slide for this, but this is one of our favorite pictures. It was even in a blog with the National Fish and Wildlife Service blog. And this is a school at Esperanza Elementary, which is by MacArthur Lake, MacArthur Park. And I will get to in a little bit, but this is just a preview of what we like to focus on as well, which is intergenerational learning.
And this space was previously completely paved over. As you can see, it's adjacent to downtown Los Angeles. Los Angeles, one of the most park-poor cities in the entire nation. This school has a good fortune to have a very engaged principal, Mr. Brad Rumble, who has pushed for greening at this campus and another campus where he was previously a principal. Emily will discuss that more as well. MacArthur Park is fairly close to this school. However, some families have reservations about utilizing MacArthur Park for various reasons. They don't feel safe there. This is a safe space. And every student that attends this school, hundreds of them, not a one lives in a house with a yard. They all live in apartments. So to have access to green space is particularly special for them. All right, next slide. All right. I love this poster. This is what one artist envisions the Los Angeles coast looked like not so very long ago, maybe 300 years ago. So in the scale of geological time, that's like half a breath. I share this a lot because I can't tell you how many times people have told me Los Angeles is a desert. This is not true. We are one of 5 Mediterranean climates in the entire world. Water flowed across this land and sustained the Gabrielino Tonga and other tribes for thousands and thousands of years. You cannot live where there is not water. There is water. So prior to European contact, all of this water flowed across the land and was absorbed by the land, recharging aquifers, creating vast stores of groundwater that are still beneath our feet. When the land looked like this, about 90% of rainfall was reabsorbed into the earth. Only about 10% wound up in the ocean. Now, we are going to the 20th century approach to water management. With lots of paving, that ratio of 90% into the ground, 10% to the ocean is absolutely flipped. In heavily urbanized areas, 90% of the rainwater goes straight out to the sea via a storm drain system. As you can see, they have, at best, rudimentary filters at these storm drains. Whatever is on the street, oil from our cars, copper from our brakes. Copper is very toxic to sea life. Cigarette butts, dog poop, gum wrappers, you name it, it winds up in the ocean. Heavy flooding in the 1930s motivated the city to straighten and channelize most all of our rivers and streams. That's Bayona Creek you see flowing to the ocean. Historically, it probably very rarely flowed to the ocean. It was held back by sand dunes. So to create a more natural system allows more infiltration of rainwater. And that's really, coming to the forefront now. People are more aware of that. And school yards, also heavily paved, are such a good opportunity to flip that paradigm and start capitalizing on rain that's falling from the sky every year, even if it's only 5 inches. Last year we had 35 inches. It's a lot of rainwater. That's a lot of fresh water to be just pushed out to the sea in its polluted form. Okay. Emily, anything else you want to add to that?
No. Okay. So before we were at Nature Nexus Institute, we're actually 1 year into our organization. We were part of Los Angeles Audubon Society. And so the educational program of LA Audubon Society now became our own thing, Nature Nexus. And so we are still sister organizations with LA Audubon Society. But the work we've been doing, we've been doing it for years. As you can see, one of our first projects we did was in 2009 at Leopoldini Elementary School, which is also in that area of the Westlake area, about a mile or so from downtown LA. And so this started with the principal, Mr. Rumble. He actually wanted to do a donation to LA Audubon, a $200 small but mighty donation. And we saw his passion for birds, but also for community. And so we were able to develop a relationship with him. And we were able to install a native habitat at this school by involving the greenhouse program, which is one of the high school programs that LA Audubon ran, and we still run today with Nature Nexus Institute, that I was part of when I was in high school. So that's actually in the picture on the bottom right, that's actually young me, high school me, where I was able to teach young students about soil, about native plants. And it's full circle moment because now I do that as a career. I still work with this school. I do yearly maintenance in the school, and we still do educational programs. And the best part of it is that we were able to engage the students, we were able to engage the parents in installing native plants. And so, yeah, it's really great to be part of this project then and still work on it today. Next slide. And so Mr. Rumble went from Leopoldini Elementary School to, can you put the last slide?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I double clicked. Sorry.
It's okay. Mr. Rumble went from Leopoldini Elementary School to Esperanza Elementary School, and we pretty much followed him. So we were able to establish a native habitat at Esperanza as well, where there used to be a bungalow. So the one on the left is when we were with the greenhouse program, again, the high school program that we do at the Baldwin Hills, they were able to lay out the paths, and then we were putting the plants down, and we were able to engage again the students and their families. These are families that live near the school, like how Cindy mentioned that they live in apartments, so their only green space would be MacArthur Park, and so they were able to engage and seeing something from the start to today of another green space that brings many pollinators, many migratory birds, and so on. The middle picture is Jerry, who was part of our high school program a couple years back. And again, we like to focus on intergenerational learning. The kids are not just hearing from us, staff, but they're hearing and learning from the high school students. And it's really impactful for the students, but also for the high school students to get that experience that will be beneficial personally, professionally, and much more. And so the next picture is one of the last pictures I took. I think I took that during the during the last two years. So the native plants have grown, and they are providing a lot of habitat for the animals, like I mentioned, pollinators, migratory birds, but they're also providing, this great space for the students and also a teaching opportunity for the teachers that they can like pair up with the curriculum. Next slide.
All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, these green spaces beautify campuses, allow for better engagement with the students, and they be a formal or informal teaching. When I go to the campus as part of my program with some of the groups is to take them birding on campus. I ask them, where do you think we're going to see birds? They always lead me to green spaces, no matter how small they are. But on a larger picture, benefit the entire community and the land and the earth. They recharge aquifers. These swales funnel water away from the asphalt and back into the ground. When you recharge an aquifer, it's like a bank account of water. It keeps the land cooler in times of drought and stores and redirects rainwater during heavy rain season so it doesn't flow into the ocean in all its polluted form. Soil captures and helps to break down pollutants. A green space that's cool and wet on a hot day draws students. Many of these schools have parent centers where parents come to. They might be taking English lessons. They might be working on health issues. And so the parents are on many of these campuses. LAUSD, 70%, 80% of the students qualify for free lunches. They're called Title I schools. So these are really underserved communities. And when you provide green space access that students and parents get to enjoy on a daily basis, it's very beneficial. Next slide. Okay, teaching tool. This is Esperanza again. Brad had a beautiful mural done. The bird on the bottom right-hand corner is a porwheel. That's a migratory bird that's nocturnal. It made a pit stop at Esperanza during its long migration to rest. The students found this. Every year, every spring, every fall, Brad has a contest with the students about the return of the yellow rump warbler. When is it going to return? And the students watch the first sighting of the yellow rump warbler, which also another species that uses our garden. So this engages. We have done work with teachers through our drops project, teaching them, helping them to learn how to use the habitat and to be more comfortable with the habitat, including sketching, observation. If a teacher builds in 1 day a week of 20 minutes out in the garden, it provides a consistency. These open spaces change every week. It's a little different. Something's taller, something's blooming. Children can document that, learn how to collect data. There's just so many opportunities. Obviously I think we're running a little long, but we could go on and on. Last slide, Emily, last slide. Yeah.
So,
Emily, talk about this.
No, not yet, but yeah. So these are some examples of curriculum, supporting curriculum, pairing with what you could do with a schoolyard habitat. The burrowing owl is another bird that visited Esperanza Elementary School, and the students were able to see, and I think it visited like 3 times, like 3 years in a row. And they were able to do direct observation and, drawing. It's really important to do drawing no matter what age you are and no matter the skill level. You can be a bad drawer, but still it's really important to do sketching of your observations. I like to, depending on the age group or the disabilities, if I'm at a native habitat, if I'm working with kindergartners or I'm working with students with mental or physical disabilities, I focus on the senses of native plants. So I focus on touching and smelling. For 3rd grade specifically, we could do adaptation. So like I mentioned, these are just some of the examples of how important and how you can really make the connections of schoolyard habitat and, you know, the next science generations or other curriculum through the school. Next slide.
Next slide. All right. We have seen test scores that go up when kids get outside, when they have a learning tool at their disposal. The programs that we develop are based on the state science standards. Everyone feels better when they're outside. Unfortunately, we've become quite an indoorsy society. But if you've got to draw like flowers, insects, butterflies, and birds, people want to be out there. And as we all know, the open space keeps planet cooler, absorbs carbon dioxide. It's all that we've been talking about. Let's see, final slide. This photo is of a great horned owl. I was just at 186th Street School in Gardena recently and was told there was a great horned owl that was spotted there. Who spotted it? The students. The teachers did not believe the students at first until they showed them. This was student-led discovery. And I will close with another quick anecdote. I was just at 36th Street, or 36th and Western, a school there on Monday. And I try to emphasize nature is all around us. Even, you know, we just need to look. And there are trees in this neighborhood. So I said, I bet you find, you know, birds and things in your neighborhood. And said, maybe not so much on campus. And one little boy raised his hand and said, I find plants growing in the cracks in the asphalt. Okay, so they know it's there. They want it to be there. They're looking for it. So let's help these kids out and their families and their teachers by providing more green space to be used for educational opportunities, mental health, and just plain fun. How fun is it to go hang around outside at your schoolyard and look for butterflies? So, and I think, you know, I know that there's some issues with absenteeism within schools now too. If I'm a child that, you know, has a garden at my school, I want to go to school. I don't want to stay home. So we will be available for questions later. And thank you for bearing with us because we just had so much to say.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, visit our website, especially if you're on the west side, like in Culver City area, or if you're willing to travel there, please join our community programs. We have habitat restoration, nature walks, or you can just contact us as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy and Emily. That's a great segue into launching into our discussion now. So we're going to bring back together our panelists from this first panel, and I'm going to introduce Michaela Randolph with Heal the Bay. Michaela is one of the watershed coordinators for the Safe Clean Water program for the Central Santa Monica Bay area. But Michaela also has a long history of consulting, working, thinking on green schoolyards, living schoolyards, opening up campuses, and also has served as a steering member of the LA Living Schoolyards Coalition. So she's wearing many hats today as our moderator, but I'll be handing it over to Michaela to facilitate our discussion. And first, I do quickly want to say, let's make sure in this discussion, we all get really excited about school greening, but our interpreters have reminded us gently to speak a little bit slower just so that they can be keeping up. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Michaela, and all of our panel one presenters to have a great and fruitful conversation. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Claire Sophia. And thank you so much for our panelists, Laura, Emily, Cindy, Shannon, I know had to leave, Monica. Please show your love in the chat, show some reactions. There's so much incredible information that was shared in this first panel. So thank you all so much for your work and your commitment and your enthusiasm, because I felt it all. So thank you again. So there's quite a bit covered in this first panel. I think the metrics feels really important. And I think, Laura, I'm going to start off this first question with you. And don't worry, folks in the chat, we've highlighted some of your questions too that we'll get to throughout this discussion. But I just want to circle back to highlighting the public benefit and opening up the campus, to the community during non-school hours. A lot of campuses don't necessarily, or school districts, I should say, don't necessarily have that practice. So, Laura, are you able to speak to what are the additional benefits that a community can gain when the campuses are open and they're green?
Yeah, thank you, Michaela. Thank you, Michaela. So I think, so kind of going back to our forever problem is what is out there and then what can we measure, right? And so you open this and people, like we've heard beautiful stories from Emily and Cindy and Monica and how people interact with the space and they feel better and they do better at work and they do better at school. And there are all these things that we just can't measure. So what we did is we said, okay, we're just going to pretend that the only thing people do when you open this recreational space is recreate and move around and exercise. And so how we measure things, we try to put this through the lens of public health. And so the health benefit of moving around and exercising essentially. And so that was kind of our proxy to say, you open this ground to people are going to go and move. And so there are studies out there that tell you if you increase your physical activity levels by this much, you reduce your health cost by that much, just from all those benefits that you experience. And so that's how we went about it. But of course, the benefits that you experience are not limited to just like physical health, right? There's mental health, and then, as I said, all these other economic consequences. If I feel better, I'm going to be a more productive worker, and there are impacts that then are triggered by that. So that's kind of in a nutshell, but just to say that there are many more than what we could measure. And we did try to use the public health approach, and I'm sure you could use the same lens, widen it up a little bit and come up with more options.
Thank you so much, Laura. A big topic that came up, was stewardship, right? And Monica, you hit on that so well. And I think also Cindy and Emily, like it was so cute to see high school Emily and see that trajectory from, you mentoring children, elementary school students and being, a really good example for them and inspiring stewardship. And then this is now your career. And so I'm curious, like, is there a way to handle to measure stewardship? One, and that's more of a Laura question probably. But then secondly, maybe Emily, you can share, and Monica, maybe you can chime in on how this, kind of idea of stewardship can just lend itself and inspire community or even career choices.
I'll just answer some of the questions. I also forgot to mention that Jerry, the high school student from the program, he was actually a Leopoldina Elementary School student as well when I was in high school. So then when I was able to, he was a high school student in the greenhouse program, doing the same thing at a new school. So that was another, I forgot to mention about Jerry as well. So that was really beautiful. But yeah, I think it's really beneficial to, and I hope I do answer the question correctly, to give the opportunity to students and tell them and share like possible careers, because a lot of like common careers is like lawyer, doctor, and things like that. And having that hands-on experience is really helpful to choose and decide, there's other careers out there too, especially for a city that's growing, that continues to grow. Greening a city, greening small habitats like schools or parks is careers that are growing. So it's really helpful also to know that, caretaking like native plants either in a park or school is something that has been done for years, through ancestral knowledge as well. So it's just something that's in our blood as well. So it's really nice to make the connections of, doing that, being part of intergenerational learning and, full circle moment of doing something when you're younger and then getting it and then doing and then keep sharing that for generations to come. So I hope I did answer that.
No, that's great, Emily. I'm curious. I just want to expand on that just a moment and ask you what, like, in what moment were you like, I want to do this like as my job? Like, I want to get paid to play in the dirt, basically, or to educate students. Like, what was that
Yeah,
moment?
I know exactly that moment. It was through another organization, and I was actually backpacking in Yosemite, and when I was like 16, and I was like, I want to do this when I grow up. Like, I'm like these two people, those two leaders who were taking, high school students from LA, urban eyes, Los Angeles to Yosemite to the wilderness. But the thing is, what changes, instead of taking LA kids to the wilderness, quote unquote, to Yosemite, I was like, you know what? We have nature here. I want to show people the nature we have here. When I went to college in Santa Cruz, I missed LA so much. That's when I did realize, like, you know what? I really want to go to LA and talk about the nature we have there. And that's my my moment. So it went from like, I want to go to Yosemite, I want to live there, I want to take kids there, to I have it all here in LA.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Monica, let's talk about kind of the stewardship that you brought. I mean, you started out just as so many enthusiasts and parents, like you're on a campus, when your child is small, you're kind of like most engaged. So when you said never turn away a kindergarten parent, absolutely, because that's when you get them engaged when they're young. And then, ideally that engagement continues, as they get older and older. So talk about some of the stewardship you've been able to inspire. I mean, the model is so amazing that you've done there in Glendale.
Thank you.
So talk about kind of that stewardship you've inspired in parents and then
Sure.
subsequently the students.
I'm happy to. Okay, I'll start with the parents. It's interesting because you do get parents getting involved who already love plants. Maybe they don't know native plants, but they want to learn more about that. And like you said, as a kindergarten parent, you kind of want to be on campus to see your kid. You have any excuse to do that. So it's a good time to engage folks. But I also now have parents who are coming into this and really finding a passion for it. It's interesting. And they want to go and they want to take classes and learn more. And that's great. To have more of us be more expert in native plants, it's just really helpful to me. As far as the children go, I think, they're so young and they're forming their connections with things right now. I don't know that they're like all set on what they're going to do for the rest of their lives yet, but they're so stimulated by like the vermicomposting that we do to see the cycle of things and to understand, even something simple like what they're doing with their food waste and, how they can compost it. The way they see that the land can transform and replenish and get rejuvenated and then build this ecosystem that's then alive. I mean, they're seeing that in front of them. And they're in it. They want to be part of it all. And they're always talking about, the things that they're discovering. So, these are future scientists. These are future people who might want to work with plants. They might want to go into things that to do with composting and reducing waste. And, they're finding a way to make an impact because this world is pretty scary right now. And when, you feel like you can actually do something, you can make a difference, that feels very good. And I get that energy a lot from the kids. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Monica. That's amazing. I just want to lift up a couple of comments basically from the chat. One in which Cynthia Dixon says, opening up campuses and playgrounds after school and on the weekends is a big topic, specifically within the Los Angeles Unified School District. And the economic and fiscal factors are a major area of the discussion. And so I'm wondering if I'm circling back to you, Laura, what are some of those key points of discussion? If we were putting together a one pager and we have bullet points, what are some of those key points that says the benefits of opening up this campus to the community? Like I'm hearing increased stewardship. And when you increase stewardship, then you're increasing ownership. over that space, which means we're all going to take care of it. And so we appreciate the fact that this campus is open, but what are some like compelling arguments we might be able to share with a school district representative or administration?
Yeah, I raised my hand. I meant to unmute myself. But anyway, so I think you said it beautifully. The idea is there's this a reinforcing story. The community is going to last longer because of the project, and the project is going to last longer because of the community. You have this stewardship. And so basically, the economic story is lower operation and maintenance costs. People are going to be taking care of things. This is essentially like you have now a bunch of volunteers that are helping you clean up the space. So lower cost, and then the better benefits. We talked about the physical activity, for example, but we can think of other things. We just couldn't find a way to measure. But for instance, I don't know, like maybe some of the kids that live in the neighborhood are not in the appropriate age group for the elementary, but they still get to go and play around, develop their like coordination skills, talk with other kids, that develops their social emotional skills. So we couldn't measure those things, but I think the bullet point story is you are worried about operation and maintenance cost. We say those are going to be lower because now you have an engaged community. And then we also say there are going to be additional benefits for the people that are not normally in these spaces.
Great, thank you. So I'm getting another question from the chat from Carlos Moran, who's asking to the group, has there been any tracking of student attendance at the schools that have been transformed and quantified the monetary value gained from potential increase in attendance? And I guess that could be a Laura question because you are the economics.
Yeah.
Well, we wanted to get some numbers. We did contact some researchers, and there have been some studies tracking students' attendance across California. And I think you can get to the school level point actually. And I can share, I can find where those studies are. We didn't use them for our study because the Watershed Discovery Campus was finished 2021. So we weren't sure if we were going to pick up effects from COVID finishing or from the campus opening. So that's why we didn't go there. But there have been longitudinal studies tracking school attendance, and I'm going to go dig my sources. Maybe I send them to Clara Sofia and she can share to the participants. It's a good question.
Great, thank you, Laura. Yeah, I always say school districts, like kind of the most important things are like, you know, enrollment, right? Ensuring that there's a steady number of students enrolled. I would say academic performance or outcomes, mostly in reading and math and the sciences. And then, you know, daily attendance, ensuring that not only are the students enrolled, but ensuring that they're coming to school every day. And so there's, you know, these are the gateways. If we're saying school greening is the gateway to kind of address those three things, because, you know, parents are excited and they see an amazing school and they want to enroll, you know, their student in that school. And then that student is excited to be in that school space and is showing up every day, you know, and carrying that enthusiasm into the academics. I think that is the magic sauce. That's just my I know that those are three key components, and that's kind of like my assessment. So one of the things none of you are really representing kind of an LEUSD as a representative, but Isabel Duvier asked, how are kind of the collective we going to get over Los Angeles Unified School District's kind of prohibition of collecting off-site water on campus? Or conversely, how can we get more funding from the Safe Clean Water program without collecting off-site stormwater on campuses? So I guess one of the questions to you, Laura, specifically is, have you come across this issue of cities, it's really municipalities and school districts working together? And the most beneficial project could be when a school district agrees to take on off-site stormwater onto a campus, to kind of, but that's been like a little bit of a sticking point with one of our larger school districts. So do you have any insights there on how we might be able to work around that?
My understanding is that this concern is mostly political. I don't know, and I really don't know that there's evidence for or against. I think you can tell the story in a way that brings support or not. And I think that for what I understand, that's how it's been used, at least in this context. I'm not familiar with the broader literature and the evidence in other places, but my understanding is that it's mostly political.
That's fair. Thank you. Okay, so just some other questions coming in. What is the advantage of developing kind of county-wide metrics? Like I think, within LA County itself, I think we have over 80 plus school districts. So when we think about the breadth, right, of how many impacts we could have in developing some countywide metrics, what metrics could and should school districts track as they develop a living schoolyard program?
Well, I would track attendance, test scores, enrollment, all the things you just mentioned. And the couple green schools that I have seen or worked with, I mean, there are parents that are not from that neighborhood that drive their kids there or carpool with other parents from other places just so their students can go to that school. So perhaps tracking location addresses of enrolled students and are, as a parent driving that child every morning and picking them up every afternoon, or to get them to that really super beautiful school as opposed to the one in their neighborhood, which hurts neighborhood schools. Every neighborhood school should be a desirable school. Parents shouldn't have to be thinking I need to drive 8 miles to get my child to a better school. So I think that, tracking not only how many students, but where do these students come from would be a really good metric. That's
great. Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, and 8 miles in LA traffic is no joke. So we know that.
Right? The dreaded drop off. I mean, I know you've all seen elementary schools at 8 o'clock. It is,
Right. So even having a school in a walkable distance, that is also green would be such a benefit to community.
Exactly.
Cindy, while you're unmuted, I have another question for you. Can you share how teachers have used outdoor classrooms and in the classroom, and can you speak more to how lesson plans developed or curriculum are made available for teachers at multiple grade levels?
Number one, get them out there. Get them out there on a regular basis. Sketching. A plant changes every week. It grows, or maybe it doesn't, or maybe it starts a flower, it's in bud, and then it's blooming. Different birds come at different times of year. We have, and fortunately, we are a winter migratory spot. Birds that spend their summers north, there's more of a higher diversity of bird species in the wintertime. So children can track and then learn geography. Where do these birds come from? I display a map of California for many students, and most of them, this is a 4-foot long map. They cannot find Los Angeles on this map. They cannot. And I'm talking like 6th graders, 8th graders. Okay. So get a sense of geography and how that influences the movement, not only of animals, but water, people, etc. Math, you can measure square footage of the green space and versus the rest of the campus. Another really great activity is to map the campus watershed. Prior to the installation of green space and then after, where does water pool? Where do we have problems with flooding? How could we fix this? Where does water from off the street flow in? Is it dirtier than the water that flows across the campus? Probably. You could even do for the upper grades, pH testing of the water. right? Salinity, the ground has some salt. So is the water saltier here than there? What species would do better? Charting shade, sunlight. How about the movement of the earth and the shadows? Pick a tetherball pole and draw a chalk outline every week. Draw that chalk outline so you can track all year long that movement and then how it comes back. And when you talk about solstice, equinox, I could go on and on and on.
That's huge.
Is that enough of an answer?
Good answer.
Yeah. Michaela, I had a couple things to add to that, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
The districts might want to track temperature reductions on campus.
Right.
Water retention amounts and air quality. They may want to track how many days the kids are allowed to go on campus. To go outside of their classrooms before versus after. And they may also, of course, look at enrollment numbers. That's already been talked about. Yep. So I would want to track also, the biodiversity on campus. That might not be as important to the school district themselves, but that's really interesting too.
That's great. Thank you both, Cindy and Monica. That's amazing. One thing I just want to elevate is, we're talking about the physical transformation of schoolyards, right? And ensuring that they're more green and that they are capturing stormwater, reducing the urban heat island that we have here. But I cannot, I would be remiss if I did not, elevate the importance of curriculum and pairing that transformation with curriculum. And also, as we talk about curriculum, ensuring that there's professional development dollars that are dedicated so that teachers actually have the confidence, the competence, and the comfortability to take their classes outside for outdoor education opportunities. So for all you district people listening, some of those professional development dollars, could go towards this and really help to, meet those next generation science standards as well. Okay. So I was like, there's a question here around the watershed coordinators. And when we go into these breakout sessions later in this session today, you'll meet several watershed coordinators. So the question at the top of the call was, which watershed area are you in? And there is a map based on LA County Safe Clean Water Program that showed the different watershed areas. So the question is, what role are watershed coordinators playing to help identify school greening opportunities and connect them to funding opportunities? So there are 12 watershed coordinators of LA County Safe Clean Water Program, representing 9 watershed areas. And there's a subset of our 12 that have been really focused almost since our beginning in our role for the last 2 going on 3 years of schools and stormwater capture, and really educating school districts, meeting with school districts. We had a symposium back in 2021 or 2022. And then we've recently been hosting a lot of different school tours to elevate stormwater capture projects and as a pathway to school greening on several campuses throughout the county. So, if you haven't met your watershed coordinator, you'll probably meet them today. And just know that we continue to serve as a resource to kind of educate you all on what kind of the opportunities are. There's also upcoming MS4, the Municipal Separate Stormwater Sewer System, guidance that will be coming down for schools in particular, compliance. And so we think this is really an opportunity to be innovative and to be excited and not to be reactive, to be in compliance. And so we have conversations about how are you working with your school, how are you working with your local municipality, et cetera. So anywho, that is that. And I'm getting the note that we are at time for our discussion. So I hope folks online are able to keep those questions coming in the chat, and perhaps we'll do our best to continue to answer those. Thank you so much again to our panelists.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
We are going to go into a quick break here. We're just going to take about 3 minutes. So if everyone can rejoin, take a quick bio break, meet us back at 11 a.m. And we are going to post a poll while we are doing that. We're going to put up, as Michaela was mentioning, that map of the watersheds again, and have this poll go out for identifying which watershed area you are representing today. And again, this will be feeding into our breakout rooms later after panel 2. And we do have options for other if you are coming to us from outside of LA County today, or if you're representing LA County as a whole. So as you step away for a break, make sure to answer our poll, and we will see you all back here in a few minutes. All right, I think we're going to get started again, if everyone can rejoin us. All right, welcome everyone back to the second half of our event. So we're going to move into panel 2. All right, so for panel 2, we are focused on how can we be integrating external partnerships into creating this process for living schoolyards. So we're really honing in here on models of school district water agency partnerships. So I'm thrilled to welcome our 3 panelists here today. We will have Evelyn Reyes from San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District talking about community partnerships beyond the classroom and how the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District has been funding and supporting projects and evolving the types of projects that they've been supporting over time. Claire Robinson from Amigos de los Rios talking about how each school campus can be a microcosm of the watershed. And we've heard a little bit earlier today from Laura and from Shannon on some of Amigos de los Rios' work. So we're excited to hear more from Claire on their approach. And then lastly, from Emma Melvin, who's actually coming to us all the way from the School District of Philadelphia, bringing in this external model of how the School District of Philadelphia, through a partnership with Philadelphia Water Department, has set up this green stormwater infrastructure program, and she'll be sharing some of their lessons learned and their model that could be brought into our region. So we will have Eileen Alduenda as the moderator for this event, or for this panel at the end of our presentations, who we heard from earlier today. But first, I'm going to pass things off to Evelyn Reyes, who's the External Affairs Manager with San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District, to talk about their community partnerships beyond the classroom. So Evelyn, I will give you slide control and hand it off to you. Evelyn, are you able to unmute?
Perfect. Cool. Great. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, as a water agency, what type of partnerships we have with school districts. We have a robust program with being in the classroom and teaching kids about water savings and conservation, but this is just another level of what we do to work on a larger scale. So about us, the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District is a municipal water agency that provides supplemental water to the cities of Azusa, Sierra Madre, Alhambra, and Monterey Park. We are one of 28 state water contractors with the state of California that imports water. This is our leadership. We have an elected board of 5 members that represent our 4 cities. Our main mission is to provide low-cost imported water supplies to supplement groundwater. But another part of our mission is that we provide grants, zero-interest loans, and technical assistance for local infrastructure needs such as water treatment facilities, wells, pipeline connections, but we also have a very robust school education program. And we also provide water conservation grants and help fund projects. We also do an extensive amount of community outreach. Here's an example of various native gardens and projects that we have funded in the past. It includes providing native landscaping at Sierra Madre Elementary School. We had a partnership at Azusa Unified School District, at Paramount Elementary School, that we did some native planting. We've also funded a demonstration garden in the city of Monterey Park. And we have also provided funding to do some native planting in the city of Alhambra for City Hall. In 2028, after Measure W was passed by the voters of Los Angeles County, we saw an opportunity to invest in our schools on a larger scale. We decided, well, we've been funding various native garden projects, but how could we be able to assist in getting more funding for larger projects? So after receiving feedback from school officials, they identified that they did not have the staff or the resources to develop technical studies to apply for additional funding. So we created an MOU between Garvey Unified School District and worked with the Council for Watershed Health to provide us with technical assistance for school greening projects in Monterey Park. We identified 2 schools, which are Hillcrest Elementary and Monterey Vista Elementary, because they both have sloped campuses, which are prone to flooding and debris. And we began by meeting with school staff and principals to identify, what their vision for their campuses were. The great thing about the Council for Watershed Health is that they really try to bring the educators and the principal, the people that work there day in, day out, to kind of gather their ideas and their feedback of what they would like to see on their campuses. And in addition, afterwards, we work closely with operations and maintenance staff. So this is a site map of Hillcrest Elementary that was developed. It identifies different areas of concern. So we understood that the school was prone to flooding. The sloping caused some areas of concern due to the stability of the campus. There was several debris flows that were identified. And then one of the things that came out in asking the teachers for feedback was that they would really like to see an educational Zen garden on campus, which is the green area on the map. After the study, the findings showed that there was potential opportunities to develop a bioretention and biofiltration area. There was a potential for a grasscrete and stabilization area. And everything in green are areas that were identified as potential opportunities. Here's the site map of Monterey Vista Elementary. Like Hillcrest, they identified areas that were prone to flooding. This campus is very sloped. There's also a moderate concern for the stability of the hillside, debris flow concerns. And here there's a student garden where students go out and plant different vegetables. So, the principal and the teachers really wanted to see this expanded. So the findings here were that there was a potential for a bioretention, biofiltration area. There was an opportunity to add a cistern and the potential to use stormwater to irrigate the garden. One of the neat things that I thought there was a great opportunity for was this kind of like hook was a good area to have a biofiltration area, but it would link up to being able to be use that area for educational purposes. And then another thing that was another opportunity that was found that initially was not considered, but was all the way on the right, this long area that kind of leads up to the street. It's a sloped area. So we identified stormwater opportunities, and where the school district could work with the city to be able to develop a stormwater capture, because it would be beneficial for both. And here I have just kind of a little bit of like results and lessons learned. The technical assistance program was finalized in 2022 due to COVID and staffing changes. There were some delays that were caused, but the technical assistance study was able to find different areas that the school district could go after funding. One of the Monterey Vista, due to its flooding, has a great opportunity to be able to apply for FEMA mitigation grants that would assist them. In addition, it created a 30% plan for bioretention projects at Monterey Vista. And we feel with this technical assistance study, the school district will be able to go after safe clean water program funding. Some of the challenges are that obviously there's additional funding needed to complete the designs. And throughout the years, we've noticed that there has been various staff changes within the school district. So kind of just impacted our project timeline. So sometimes we had to go back and re-educate the new staff on what we were doing and, you know, how to continue on to finalize the technical assistance project. And with that, thank you. I'll be available for questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Next, we have Claire Robinson, who's Managing Director of Amigos de los Rios. And I will pass it off to you, Claire, and give you slide control.
Thank you.
Make sure you have that.
Oops. Great. I think, thanks for the opportunity. See if I can make sure I'm able to move the slides. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble.
If not, I can jump in for you, Claire.
Okay, could you? Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. This has been such a heartening morning so far. I love every single presentation. I'm very excited about the movement of really making kind, humane spaces on schools that serve everyone, including the environment long-term. So our nonprofit group, Amigos de los Rios, this is our 20th year anniversary. We're beginning of November, and we essentially plan and implement community-based natural infrastructure projects in direct response to environmental justice issues. And this is all based on this fantastic plan that was done in 1930, commissioned by the Chamber of Commerce, to create a landscape scale vision for the whole LA basin. And it called for protections of the upper watersheds, creation of a beautiful network of two-river network of greenways to connect the forest and mountains to the ocean, and for every single school to be serving as a park. So if you can help me. So we've been having a lot of fun. Past 20 years, we've worked on 24 different school projects of various degrees of complexity in 10 different smaller school districts. We work in East County, so we haven't worked with LAUSD, but many other of the smaller districts, and have had a lot of fun exploring the physical fitness, mental health, and academic performance benefits of greening. And keep going. If you could switch it. Yeah, and so a lot of us are aware of how impactful the disconnection from nature has been for our own kids, and compared to maybe the way we grew up, and it's really beyond a crisis. Keep going. So what we try to do in every school project is help a student who's looked at the mountains every day of their school life, but maybe not been able to visit them, understand where they are in the greater watershed that is our LA basin. And we do that by trying to shake the forest down into the school and make sure that the bigger watershed and how sustainable water and stormwater capture and biodiversity and air quality and cultural heritage can all be folded into the school site. And if you can keep zipping through, that'd be great. So we have done a lot of signage work and a lot of work up in the forest, and we're bringing that down along the river corridors. And in this case, our emerald necklace, we have all these red dots are schools. So our first school project started by greening the schools near the rivers. And then a brilliant superintendent from El Monte City School District said, the emerald necklace is a state of mind, and I want it at every single school. I don't want it just on the river schools. So if you can keep going for me, Clara. So we've taken a lot of insight from the spiritual, medicinal, constructional, and edible uses of plants as shared with us with many of the different tribes. And that constitutes our plant palette for the past 20 years. You can keep going. And I think what we've learned about public school greening is that you really need, in addition to the amazing funding partners from state and local, you need to understand and respect the sacred geometry of sports. Like whatever we do, we cannot interfere with maximizing sports play. And that if you do integrate natural infrastructure, you get ADA compliant, much better paths of travel and inclusionary spaces, which is just more kind and fun for everyone. We've undertaken an incremental approach to partnership. We'll start with planting a few trees, getting to know the school, getting to know the principal, the PTA, the facilities, and then keep working into more complex projects till we get to asphalt remove, which is the most fun thing of all. But we've learned that students are absolutely starving to be active stewards. They're happier in nature, and finding ways to allow them to participate in the school transformations is critical. And we definitely know that these green schools foster a better state of mind for everyone, teachers, students, parents. And we are excited to integrate a lot of community power in addition to amazing professional experts into our implementation projects. If you could zip through. This is our first project, and just showing that every project has its own story, and they're all beautiful and exciting to discover over time, starting with a student-centered focus. And I'm gonna just, I just put this slide in here because we work with, like last weekend, we had almost 240 folks come out to plant trees at El Rancho High School and work on our next projects there. So once you start unleashing student power, it's quite amazing. So long-term stability of the greening projects, there's a tiered approach to having a nonprofit lead that we've heard about this morning, working with the superintendent, Board of Education, facilities team, if there's a bond measure, really having a great relationship with the site principal, janitorial staff, core teachers in science, phys ed, special ed, garden education, and stewards, that we bring in as a nonprofit. And if you can keep going, the biggest problem we've had when we're looking at the bond measures is that everything is focused on buildings and much needed upgrades and repair. And landscape is a term that catches so many different things. So we're advocating for splitting the landscape term into, probably 8 or 9 different terms that we can all have metrics on and emphasize the importance of exterior spaces at our school campuses. This is what we're dealing with a lot. It reminds me of a penitentiary. When I moved out here, I was excited about the opportunity to really be outdoors a lot, but a lot of the schools are completely focused on this eerie asphalt. So the fun of transforming the asphalt in a meaningful way and making meaningful patterns of circulation. In this case, we work with Active SGV and made a bike trail, off-road bike trail that students could work with trikes, learn how to be safe biking. And we did stormwater capture. And you can zip through these really quickly, Clara Sophia, for me, using the native plants that I mentioned. So this is what it looked like after we applied cool pavement and added the plantings, and just a real transformation, bringing all the aspects of the greater watershed to play on the school campus and having students participate in what we were doing with making our bioswales and rain gardens. And you can keep going. This is what the Jeff Seymour campus looked like after we finished. So it's like within the bigger tree shape of our watershed, they're right in between the foothills and looking at the mountains, and now having these fun places on campus made by moving earth to create rainwater gardens, but also keeping it on site to make other amenities. So yeah, you can keep zipping through really quickly because I really wanted it to be more like a slideshow. So the asphalt has an eerie quality to it, kind of fascinating as a surface, but not really what we're going for. So at Mary W. Jackson, which Laura mentioned earlier, we really wanted to plant trees, convert the front and edges of the school into native habitat, and then do a little bouillon cube stormwater garden in one area, and then do a full-scale conversion. So I'm going to show you, this is what it reminded me of before, kind of metaphysical, eerie school space. And removing the asphalt helped with drainage problems and helped with ADA access. This is the fun day that the pulverizing machine came in and went back and forth like a lawnmower, ripping up the asphalt and putting it into a recycling. Here are some of our workforce making our rain harvest boxes. Once we had the holes dug, work with geosyntech engineers who told us how much capacity we needed for stormwater. And then we put these infiltration rain harvest boxes into a number of different sites on the campus. You can keep zipping through. So there's major digging and major work. We found asphalt below asphalt. Here's some rain harvest boxes going in. And where there was a lot of asphalt before and no ADA path of travel, there's now an opening where we've got our infiltration underneath, and we're bringing boulders down from the mountain, pouring pervious concrete around the edges of this. And now you kind of get the connection between the mountains, the Angeles Forest, and the campus. And the ADA access with a little spatula of pervious coming in so that students can access every part of the campus. Our original stormwater garden bouillon cube to test soil conditioning. And we love to work with as many students as possible and take our time doing the projects. Here's a recycling project of bringing in a tree with a patented cleat so that if you have a bunch of students climbing on it, no one will have their fingers smashed. It's also a rain harvest garden underneath it, working with Angel City Lumber to bring recycled trees in various forms to make classrooms and the edges of play areas. You can keep zipping through. The thing that was really heartening to me, all of our projects begin with looking at the ADA path of travel and the fire lane, and then preserving them very carefully, but making the much more inclusionary circulation throughout the campus. And keep zipping through. And so here we have our pervious pavement, underneath which is a gallery of simple gravel. So we have about 14,000 square feet of capacity with underneath the pervious. And then we brought a huge throne in for the teachers. Of course, the students use it too, and large recycled trees as benches we did multiple outdoor classrooms, each themed with a different materiality of wood or stones. And here's just a little bit of how the students now re-inhabit what was a pretty eerie space that was extremely hot, as has been mentioned before. You can keep zipping through. And this is, the site now. It was all asphalt, and now we're seeing breathing. I can't tell you how impactful it was when we cracked the asphalt open and got the second layer of asphalt out. And all of a sudden, it felt like we were totally connected to the forest. A lot of mulched habitat areas. And this is the what the kids call the family tree sofa that we put in one of the areas. Piles of asphalt gone. And now we've got the stormwater capture occurring and biodiversity entering. And just a little pictorial journey of that process. And the signage we put in to show that what we're doing up Watershed impacts the ocean. So the dolphin is the theme for Mary Jackson. And when we have our bioswale areas, we put the bioswale sign in and kind of connect the dots between the upper watershed and the ocean. And the other thing that was really important is working with a science teacher to try to map out the scope and sequence of the curriculum from kindergarten through 5th grade and see how to tie learning to the outdoors. So I'm really running out of time, so we can just zip through quickly. I wanted to show, this is the map that of the whole campus. And the next project is one that deals with a lot of environmental justice, social justice issues. Our storm drain system is not adequate for every single parcel within our urban fabric. So in this case, Plymouth Elementary, and you can zip through for me, received a lot of water upstream. The school is at the bottom of a hill and flooded regularly. So this is the beginning picture of all these projects, like lots of asphalt, and how we could transform what was a proverbial flooding issue, which impacted students arriving at school and teachers arriving, into something that was much more fun. So we did have some support from Natural Resources Agency and Safe Clean Water, and looking at work with California Watershed Engineering to see how we could take acres and acres of flooding and turn that into something different. So we can just, here's the typical, you've got all the green on the bottom was a lot of that field. We put a perimeter path for ADA access that's pervious, added a lot of classrooms and 138 trees and 1,200 shrubs, and in between the quads, bioswales, and in the front of the school, a whole new drive-through lane, and redid the parking lot for infiltration. So the mosquito was ruling the campus. Parents were saying, we don't want our students outdoors because they get bitten so much. And we really wanted a lot of drains that didn't have positive drainage, were perfect mosquito experiments. And we really wanted to pull all those out and create natural infrastructure solutions for those. That's the principal explaining how painful it's been for him to have to deal with these mosquitoes. So we can zip through and kind of see the pictures. Big muddy mess when you take out that much concrete or asphalt, creating the galleries or just the drainage areas. And this is what it looks like now. We put the pervious pavement, mulched landscape areas, benefiting from the legacy tree shade, and then adding a lot of new trees and some cool pavement to make this feel more like a park than a penitentiary. Interpretive signs are critical, multilingual where possible around the campus, and we can keep zipping through the presentation. Just to show, this is a bioswale that we created, and walkway, and I love it because now students in wheelchairs are allowed, or can physically attain the whole campus. And we can keep zipping through. Little stormwater garden in the kindergarten area where the trike trail has more interest, and adding the cool pavement where we couldn't plant. Can keep zipping through really quickly. One of our outdoor classrooms. So my plea to all of us is turn these classrooms inside out and benefit from great shade on campus and create more. And during the pandemic, you can keep going, the need for 6-foot on center seating, allowed us to break through and get some of these classrooms in. And then once we got them in, teachers are signing up for them back to back. So I think all of this technical work, if you could stay here for just a sec, on stormwater and greenhouse gas sequestration and air quality improvements and biodiversity, I'm just going to read this from some parents. I can't even begin to show all the appreciation we have for Amigos. Their hard work, dedication, creative minds have helped, and by the way, Amigos means a lot of collaboration, have helped transform our campus into a beautiful, peaceful, and safe place. The additions have made it safe for everyone to enjoy outdoor space, take peaceful walks on the new path, and provide so much more useful space for our family nights. I love already seeing improvements of how water is being dispersed throughout the campus to reduce flooding. Makes my heart happy to know that my daughter, who is partially blind, autistic, and has a plethora of health issues, has a safe place. So to me, like we've heard that over and over again, about the impact to individual students and families. And you can go to the next slide. I think that's so critical socially for our democracy, in addition to all the amazing metrics of trees and shrubs and the lasagna approach of natural infrastructure for our sustainable water future, is just the fact that we're bringing students together in new ways and offering a more inclusionary space for folks who are neurodiverse and who have any kind of challenges, and just everybody in general. So our motto for our last slide is kind of to really put a human face to school infrastructure and to have a lot of fun doing so. We're looking forward to doing further training with Earth Economics. Laura did a great job presenting the Mary Jackson School. We're looking to improve our funding so we can do case studies on all 24 of the projects we've done. And we'd love to be in dialogue with whoever we can be supportive of on their initiatives. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire. That was inspiring, and there's a lot that's really good to dig into. Next, we have Emma Melvin, who is the Green Infrastructure Program Manager, coming to us from the School District of Philadelphia, and is going to be describing how their program got set up and some of their lessons learned. So Emma, I will give you screen control and let you launch in.
Great, thank you so much. I'm Emma Melvin with the School District of Philadelphia. I've been here since 2019. I'm the Green Infrastructure Program Manager. The school district has been working with the city for over 10 years on stormwater management, and I'll give you kind of an overview of what we've been doing so far.
Emma, really quick, I think your mic is a little muted, so I don't know if you can just move it a little closer.
Okay.
There we go.
Is that better? Okay.
That's good.
Great. So Philadelphia came a little bit late to the game, stormwater management. We are a fully developed city and a historic city, so we only started doing stormwater management in around 2006 as part of a EPA consent agreement that the city had with the EPA about combined sewer overflows. Since we're a historic city, our stormwater and our sewer system are in one pipe. And so during not even very large storm events, our sewers are overflowing into our streams and rivers with untreated sewage water. And so the city of Philadelphia had to come up with a plan to manage those combined sewer overflows. And they started changing stormwater regulations in around 2006 and have been strengthening them over the years. So we started putting in green stormwater infrastructure and designing it in our new buildings and our redeveloped sites. So we are one of the largest landowners in Philadelphia. So we're a great partner for the city of Philadelphia to help pilot their program. We started doing LEED certified buildings around 2008. From 2006 to 2008. In 2008, we actually got our we were the first school district to have a LEED Platinum certified building, and that building was Kensington Kappa, and it was part of what the city calls their big green block, where they had a series of stormwater management treatment practices throughout that block. So that school hosted a variety of practices, including multiple green roofs. We had rain gardens, we had porous pavement, we had cisterns for stormwater reuse at that site. And in 2011, the city released their Green City Clean Water Plan. It was their strategy of how they were going to manage these combined sewer overflows through green stormwater infrastructure. And we were one of the first and major partners on that plan. So we worked with the city, and the city, being that this is a new concept, and the engineers that we worked with weren't as familiar with green stormwater infrastructure, we actually partnered with the city as they took the lead as the designer and the installer of these practices. So in 2014, PWD worked with the Philadelphia Water Department, abbreviated PWD, worked with the Nebinger School to create the school district's first green schoolyard. And what that entailed was multiple stormwater practices integrated right into the schoolyard. So we had a rain garden that buffered the edge of the school district property. We had subsurface infiltration beds, and we had other landscaping. Compared to your school buildings and school campuses, our school buildings and campuses are much smaller. We do have a significant number of buildings. So the school district owns over 360 properties with 149 elementary schools, but they're relatively small. So anywhere from half an acre to 2 acres. Our high schools are probably our largest properties, anywhere from 2 to 4 acres large. Maximize the benefit of this required stormwater management and integrate it into our schoolyards. The Philadelphia Water Department was taking on a lot of the maintenance, as these are water management practices, but was only doing that in the start of the program. And so they, in around 2017, handed over a lot of these voluntary stormwater management projects to the school district, which was a little bit of an issue because we, at that time, didn't have any trained professional who had experience maintaining and managing these systems. And in turn, we failed to maintain these systems correctly, and we fell into compliance issues because these systems in Philadelphia are inspected every 3 to 4 years, and if we don't meet the requirements, we go into compliance. So in around 2018, the school district realized we needed someone solely dedicated to overseeing these projects, providing a feedback loop to our capital programs department on better design. And the school district submitted a grant to the William Penn Foundation, which is a local foundation, who supported the school district with a large grant to hire a professional, and that would be myself, in 2019, and to develop 2 large-scale projects and to create a green stormwater infrastructure program. And so at that point, we had around 30 projects, and now we're up to about 62 projects. 57 are currently maintained through a contract I oversee, and 5 are right now in one phase of construction or establishment. So how our program works is we have a close partnership with the Philadelphia Water Department. We have also a close partnership with a lot of our design partners. So we also work with the Trust for Public Land, who is one of our great partners in the city of Philadelphia, who's been working with us to install and fund these transformed schoolyards. We also work with a lot of Friends of group, but I oversee the whole maintenance program and work with our capital programs to help review design and installation of all our stormwater projects. I oversee a landscape contract that has a specialized landscape contractor who is trained to do maintenance on green infrastructure. So that contract is divided into our vegetation maintenance and our subsurface maintenance. That includes any of like the structural components, say our inlets, our subsurface systems, our piping, any masonry or fencing components. They are routinely maintained throughout the year. So we have them out every month doing vegetation maintenance and out quarterly to do subsurface work and to do additional services when identified. What I found when developing this program is that a lot of our issues with our green infrastructure really stemmed from their location in a small but densely populated schoolyard that had a million little feet running through it, with a lot of staff who were unaware of how this is a functioning infrastructure on the campus. So we identified the need for a stewardship component that includes the community, that includes the students and school staff and school district staff. I'm going to first talk about the stewardship component, because this is a big one to really help the success of our maintenance program. Because in the maintenance aspect and in the design aspect, we sometimes think about like, what are the negative impacts to these systems and how can we design around them? But what I see is that how can we flip these, what we see as a negative interaction, into a positive reaction? And stewardship and education and knowledge awareness was really important to make our program more cost effective, really help the longevity of these systems, and really the success of these systems, both the vegetative component, but also our infrastructure component, our pipes and our inlets and stuff like that. So we started working with 4 schools that had schoolyard green infrastructure. We see the most impact is on those systems. We got support from our grant to provide tools and supplies, plant materials, you name it, to create stewardship activities and to engage school staff and teachers in the process. So that doesn't mean just like weeding or picking up litter, but also how to create these positive engagements. Part of it could be signs saying the path is for the students, the gardens for the plants. So we added a lot of signs, we provided tool sheds for all of these schools, and we started expanding into supporting some smaller scale greening projects to start activating school involvement, principal involvement, teacher involvement in greening to help expand that into a larger stormwater management project. Part of our stewardship also includes engagement with school staff outside of teachers. So our building engineers, that's our custodial staff who maintains the buildings, our climate staff, which are our staff that actually oversees the like recess time or other activities that are in the schoolyard, engages our different district staff who oversee these buildings to bring familiarity to them as an infrastructure component, some do's and don'ts that you can do. So it's more robust than just having the kids out doing weeding. Okay, so our maintenance program is exactly what it sounds like. That includes, these are permitted systems that do get inspected. So we have an RFP, request for proposals for contracted services of trained professionals, that goes out every 3 years. And we contract with a landscape contractor who specializes in green stormwater infrastructure maintenance. We have subcontractors who do subsurface work with vac trucks or with pervious pavement, but we also have these additional services that look at engineering services or geotechnical services related to, like, maybe if we have something that's the system that's failing, we have that a lot with our porous pavements. Or our specialized maintenance, because we have green roofs. We have multiple green roofs on schools that have safety requirements for maintenance. We have water reuse systems that have specialized maintenance that we need a provider who specifically works on those systems. And we currently maintain 62 sites. So it's very diverse of what we're maintaining. And it's a really robust program. We have pretty much every green infrastructure practice on our school district campuses. We have rain gardens, bioswales, we have large scale basins, we have subsurface infiltration, we have subsurface detention of various shapes and forms. We have intensive green roofs and extensive green roofs. We have cisterns, water reuse. We have various types of porous pavement. So there's lots of moving parts within our system. We do like to engage the school staff and school community and a lot of these maintenance practices. So what sometimes we do is we take our land contracted staff to do kind of the heavy lifting. If we have to replace a tree or if we have to dig out a pit, to allow for a more successful student project or community-based project. So we usually provide the mulch for the community partners to spread in some of our systems, things like that. Through the whole process, we engage our partners and our water utility. So they're a big partner when we established this program to help connect with the community and with our school partners. They also work with us on troubleshooting a lot of our issues that we have, talking about redesigning practice, what we're allowed to do or permitted to do, and promoting a lot of our work and our efforts. So we were lucky that the water department had a lot of foresight and thinking about, like, you know, our school district is our major partner. What can we do to kind of promote stormwater management inside the classroom? They have an education arm called Fairmont Waterworks. The Waterworks is one of the first water treatment plants in the United States, and they act now as an education museum for students to learn about and the community to learn about urban watersheds and water treatment. So they developed a curriculum around understanding the urban watershed that highlights green stormwater infrastructure. And we've been working with them to expand that curriculum, to add new components to it, to get it into new schools that we're doing green stormwater infrastructure at, to provide professional development to teachers, to kind of cross-connect schools that have green infrastructure and schools that are interested in having green infrastructure. We've developed new ways of engaging the classroom out into the schoolyard. We just developed a program called Sensible Schoolyards, where we got grant funding, in partnership with Fairmont Waterworks, got grant funding to put sensors out into our schoolyards and provide handheld sensors. So students and teachers can be the scientists to learn about how is this green space changing the way we feel in our schoolyard. And what's great about that program is they see the transformation and they feel it. This allows them to quantify the changes through air quality, through temperature changes, and see how vegetation in that green space plays a big role in making their community cleaner, healthier, and a welcoming space. And they can be the stewards, and they can be the teachers to their community about how to make that change. We also embarked on a program to help smaller schoolyards and to raise up all our schoolyards that have greening. We're working with teachers on what a tree planting, a MIWI. It's a meaningful watershed educational experience where we take the learning in the classroom and we translate it into a learning experience on their campus through tree planting. And so we're working on that this year. And we just had a really successful tree planting in this small schoolyard. And we got all grades involved to talk about, like, you know, the difference it makes in their classroom. They wrote love letters to the trees, and it's been a very successful program where in other schoolyards, we see a lot of damage to our trees, a lot of hanging and ripping down, and they feel a lot of the brunt of the vandalism. And with this program, we've seen a lot of ownership and stewardship of these trees when we have integrated it into the classroom. You know, that was a whirlwind. I'm sorry if I talked too quickly for the interpreters. I know they told me not to, but we are always excited to partner with new partners, and we are lucky to have as many partners as we do in Philadelphia. Not just Philadelphia Water Department, but the Trust for Public Land. We have Pennsylvania Horticultural Society that's working with us on de-paving our schoolyards and planting trees. We have a great initiative that just was funded to get more trees in our schoolyard and get all our campuses up to 30% canopy. So we are just lucky in the city to have all these great, but we have a lot to go. We currently have only 62, and we have over 360 campuses. So we have a lot of work, but we're chipping away at it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emma. That was really insightful and interesting to see some of the parallels and some of the differences between Philadelphia and the LA region. So now I'm going to introduce Eileen back into the conversation, and she will be moderating our panel 2 discussion. So I will stop sharing and welcome Eileen and our panel 2 presenters back to have a fruitful conversation about the presentations we just heard. So take it away, Eileen.
Thanks, Clara Sophia, and thank you, Evelyn and Claire and Emma, for some really inspiring work that's happening across campuses in the San Gabriel Valley and throughout Los Angeles and a little bit farther out to Philadelphia. Some really great examples of what partnership can lead to in terms of school greening that really focuses in on where the students are spending their day too, which is what we talked about at the very beginning of the symposium, wanting to make sure that wherever we're doing school greening is where students are spending the most of their day and that they're involved in the process as well. And Claire, thanks for kind of highlighting that effort. We have a number of questions that are in the chat. I'm going to get to those in a minute. And still, you know, for those that have questions, add them to the chat. They'll come to me. We'll get them answered. And we'll make sure we have time for others to, you know, I guess kind of help inform this dialogue that I'm hoping to have with all of you here right now. Partnerships, and those are going to be, you know, those, we know those to be integral to any projects that we do. And there's always challenges. And you've highlighted some of those challenges. And I guess what I'd like to start off with is, from your perspective, and maybe we can start with Evelyn and then go to Claire and Emma, just if you could share sort of maybe one key lesson learned from the partnerships that you've had. I know you've kind of touched on those in your presentations to some degree, but what's been one takeaway in terms of what it is that makes for a successful partnership in the work that you're doing? Evelyn, would you like to start us off? Let's see if we can get you unmuted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, figuring out, oh, there we go.
Perfect. I think the biggest challenge when it comes to our partnerships is just keeping everyone engaged. And I don't just mean, you know, the principals and the teachers, but also board members, administration, because we have had challenges where there has been staffing changes, and sometimes we've had to start all over again to be able to brief everyone about the project and what the focus is. And also, you know, just really being realistic about timelines. I think sometimes, you know, we've held workshops with teachers and they get so excited and they envision such a great space, which it could really be a great space, but, you know, it takes time and it's not something that's done overnight or, you know, what in a summer really quickly. So I think that's our biggest thing. You know, we've had, now what we do is we work with our local electeds. We work with community groups. We try to engage everyone. We have a project right now in Alhambra with SGV Catalyst and Cal State LA. And, Catalyst has been great about engaging administration and the school district and being able to keep everyone informed throughout the project.
Thank you. Emma, do you want to add to that or maybe kind of re-emphasize something that Evelyn's brought up?
Sure. Most of our projects are done in collaboration. We have a great resource because the City of Philadelphia funds a lot of our voluntary stormwater management. So that helps us develop a strong partnership with our utility, but it also provides a funding resource to provide the much needed greening that we have on all our campuses. We are constantly communicating with our communities. When we first started this process, there were concerns about is that stormwater going to end up in our basement? Where is it going? How does this work? And it's been an uphill process to kind of figure out how to refine designs, how to communicate this message with our communities, with the principals and all the partners involved. But it's been a really successful process where we kind of can show the great success at other schools, and they can imagine it into their schoolyard and their community.
Can you expand a little bit on like how that communication happens? Because there's so many different levels of communication, but I'm sure we're all kind of curious, like what's your key to success there? Because you've got a lot happening in a lot of different schools all at once.
Yeah, so I am so there's lots of different levels of the communication, but we have a very tight relationship with our water department. We actually have a monthly meeting that we have with our we're lucky that we have a schools coordinator in the water department that actually works with me on both our school projects, which mean like on our school campuses, and school projects that are led by the water department that are surrounding our schools. So I work with our community coordinator to work through any issues we have with our campus projects, and she connects me with different water department agencies, and she uses me as a resource to then communicate with our schools. So if she needs to get information from our principals or our other school staff about their projects, like how does where are the bus drop-offs and things like that, I communicate with our facility area managers who oversee a bunch of different schools or our principals. We usually have community meetings when there are larger redevelopment projects to talk about greening projects. We bring in different community partners such as Trust for Public Land to engage community partners on working with them to kind of go into the school and actually envision their schoolyard themselves. So we put a lot of effort into kind of having that communication.
It's great to hear there's like a regular frequency that's happening. It's kind of always important to any project, specifically school projects where you have so many different players just within one school community. And that's going to take me to Claire, because you too have a number of different projects happening simultaneously and keeping all that communication happening. If you can kind of share maybe some of your secrets to success for the partnerships, or maybe some of the challenges that we're still facing out there that we really need to be highlighting and addressing.
Yeah, I'm so glad about this meeting because so many different constituents are brought together, representatives from many different agencies and groups. And I feel like there's an incredible amount of collaboration which has to occur to get one of these projects done. And yet there has to be one group that is dying or living by the completion of this. These projects, like the two I showed, had to happen both within a 2-month period between when school shuts down and school opens up again. And that's a very unusual construction process when you're reduced in time to do major construction to 1/12 of the year or 1/6 of the year. So I think you cannot underestimate the importance of an obsessive, persistent nonprofit or water department partner, whoever it might be, to just keep everybody communicating. And I cannot tell you how many problems come up and obstacles come up, and it's just a singular focus and absolutely zoning in on the result of having 600 or 700 kids walk through the gate when school opens in August and smiling. And that makes you do whatever you need to do to get that project done before they get back. So I want to just highlight like the passion that we've heard about all day. Like so many people really care about this, including teenagers of siblings, younger siblings. So I want to just like acknowledge how much love and care and obsessive adrenaline there is to get these things done. It's a lot of coordination, constant communication with Board of Education, a merry-go-round of facilities, people like just turnover that's unbelievable at every level. And so someone, usually it's us with the principals, are just focused, let's get this done.
Claire, can you just dive a little bit deeper into that partnership with principals? Because we know that principals are key. On that campus, they have the responsibility for the safety and welfare and health of the students. Can you share a little bit about what you learned in terms of partnering with principals? And then I want to kind of go back to Emma and Evelyn for that same question.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of our work will cold call schools. Well, we look at underserved areas and Cal Enviro screen, because that's our focus as a nonprofit, and a staff person will talk to a school and say, do you have any issues or problems that are hard to address that, with natural infrastructure could help? And for example, Plymouth, that principal every day during a rainstorm was pulling kids out of cars to make sure they didn't get dosed in water on the way in and then sick during the day. And the mosquito issues that I mentioned, these things are not solvable within the school district ecology, and they just go on for decades. So when a group like ours or some of the other partners that have shared today their process, when we come and say we think we can multiple benefit, we can get rid of your flooding, get rid of the mosquitoes to a great extent, soften up the campus, make a lot more opportunities for educators outdoors, and address the pandemic. We're doing this right after the pandemic. The principals are the angels, like you said, that are talk about multiple benefit. They're doing everything, bringing turkeys for dinner during Thanksgiving to students who don't have them, keeping the curriculum, safety, facilities. And when we come with these projects, a lot of times the solution sets we're bringing that come from a natural infrastructure perspective are answers to decade-long problems that haven't been addressable by the school district. And the ADA access is one more thing I'll say. Like regularly, we've seen students in wheelchairs just wheeled to the edge of a field and asked to watch the other kids play. And with the pervious concrete and the permeable, the pads around the perimeter of the fields and some of the access to the outdoor spaces, it's been a breakthrough for students with disabilities. So the principals love the humanity that we're bringing, and the solutions that they probably never would have imagined would come from a greening project. They're everything. If you have a good principal, they can help you communicate up and around. And, we still have to also directly communicate to facilities team and superintendent and Board of Education. But I'd say I would never undertake one of these projects if the principal wasn't 200% on board.
Thank you, Claire, because it's within the school community, there are a number of different partners. And yet, again, the principal is going to be really key to being a strong partner, or just one that's going to go along if they're kind of pretty much told to do so. But we really want them as partners. We want them leading this effort. And so, Emma, I'm curious as to how you and your team are deciding and prioritizing the school efforts that are happening with maybe where your priorities are versus maybe principals that are really asking for these, or are you getting principals that are maybe a little, how are you handling the ones that are not quite sure yet? You can kind of help us understand like that process and that partnering from your perspective.
So because we have regulatory requirements for redevelopment, a lot of schools who are posed to get redevelopment are getting stormwater management and getting green infrastructure. So it's part of the package for a lot of these redevelopment projects, which make that process a lot easier, saying this is regulatory, we have to do this, we have to manage this, but we have enough success in projects and we have enough movement within principals and school staff that they have seen our school projects and seen how successful a lot of them are, to actually it not to be a barrier. So they're like, yes, we want this screening, we want this space, we want this dynamic schoolyard that is going to be provided as part of the process. For our voluntary projects, we always are getting principals asking for greening or schoolyard amendments. And what our partnership with PWD allows us to do is to fund these schoolyard projects and the greening through stormwater management, which makes it a lot easier for the school district to partner with school and say, okay, we can do your greening project, but it's going to be a larger stormwater management project. And you're going to get both the diversity you want in your schoolyard, but you're also going to get greening, and you're going to get spaces for maybe artificial turf, which is also considered a porous surface. And it's a way the school district can fund these larger projects more cost effectively. So we have a lot of different avenues we've been working with. We get a lot of asks from parent groups to do greening projects. Since we have so many projects, it's less of a barrier now than it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Our major ask is maintenance, and so that's where my program comes into play. We have a funded program to actually maintain these sites.
So I want to come back to the maintenance in a minute. But Evelyn, I'm kind of curious about your efforts. Thanks for highlighting some of the work that we've, the partnership that we've had. It was we had our own challenges there. However, I'm wanting you to share a little bit more about the native plant gardens that you're doing and that you have been doing, and where that partnership has led with principals, and what that looks like from that perspective, because those are gardens that help principals understand what's involved. It's what Claire was talking about, like that small incremental partnership that you can build from. So can you talk a little bit about how that process has worked for your efforts?
Yes, definitely. We've installed smaller native gardens in both school districts and also in some of our city halls throughout the cities that we represent. And like you said, it is great because it is a gateway to those larger projects. Our district is very unique in which all our four of our cities are very unique in itself. So what we do is we typically meet with our school districts, or we meet with our cities to identify areas of need or identify areas that could use the native landscaping. So that's first how we identify. And we're a little different because although we do have great relationships with our principals, we're the funding source. So for us, it's very important to build just those relationships with the admin and get the administration to get us connected to the right people so we can push the projects forward. And I think, when we fund projects, our primary focus is, not only do we want to create native gardens and, teach the kids and parents about the beautiful landscape that schools or sites can have, but also, we also like to see, what are the water saving components, and also what is the educational value by us creating these green spaces.
Thank you, Evelyn. Can you also talk about sort of the connection with the teachers? And I'm going to come to you, Claire, because you really figured out like how to work with teachers to integrate these opportunities into the curriculum, both informally and formally. And Evelyn, I know that's happening on the school campuses that you have these native plant gardens in. What's the partnership there in terms of training teachers in terms of how to use those spaces?
So we have a very robust educational program that we already work with teachers just on, where does your water come from? Basic water 101 that we work with the students. So that has allowed us to develop relationships with the teachers in how to implement, projects that we have done on their campuses into the classrooms. So through that, I think, when we first started our programs, I think it's probably about 15 years ago. And just throughout those 15 years, it's just continuing to engage the teachers. And, we also have a micro grant system in which we provide small grants to teachers where they are able to apply and use that funding to do smaller type of gardens or projects with their students. So we work with several schools where they have small native plant gardens where in one school, it's the special education program utilizes that for just their mental health and how to learn how to nurture and take care of a plant. So that's one partnership that teachers that has allowed us to really connect with the students, because it's more the students really take those projects and they make them their own.
And are you working with any organizations that have connections to the students outside the school to kind of bring in or connect them out into sort of the community?
Yes, yes and no. We work with various school groups. We also work with other community groups. Like I had mentioned earlier, we work with an organization called SGB Catalyst in the Alhambra Monterey Park area. In Sierra Madre, the school we have in Sierra Madre, they actually have a staff person on site that manages their gardens. So we work with them closely. So like I said, every area is very unique.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the challenge right there, and that each school is unique. There's definitely some crossovers and some common threads going throughout all of these projects, but then each one is unique depending on what the priorities are, the student body, the teachers. Claire, you've had a lot of experience kind of working in a number of different areas on this, and so I'm kind of curious what you've learned from teachers in terms of what their challenges are, or what they, we understand. I mean, you've got a great background in terms of how to connect teachers in. So can you kind of expand a little bit on maybe some of those challenges in partnering with teachers, and maybe some resources that we need to be thinking about and how to be partnering with them?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think for the long-term sustainability of any of these projects, they're so hard to get in the ground, but really importantly, more importantly, is how do they sustain when we're really asking facilities department to open up to a whole new regime, a whole new world, which is not blowing or mowing, but actually touching the ground, removing an invasive weed, mulching. It's so different that the presentation we heard this morning about the foundation and the folks who are hired to help, is interstitial between janitor and facilities team, is something we're going to have to work on in a more concerted fashion, and really outline a new scope of work, which combines special ed, physical therapist, occupational therapist, outdoor education, rec tech, janitor, into a new person and multivalent person. So we have tended to really make friends with the folks who are more of the janitorial staff, and make sure they don't feel burdened by the new and different, morphology, mulch, all the wood, caring for the wood and the stones. and make sure they feel comfortable with us. We bring in high school students once a month that we train in urban forestry and caring for the, like oiling the wood and caring for the different elements. We look for in the school a different discipline, like it might be the Mandarin teacher who really finds it amazing to sit on rocks and do the program, you know, the lesson outside, or science teacher where the facilities department is concerned about erosion and protect, you know, and the complexity of the biodiversity. The science teacher is saying, that's awesome. If there's erosion, I'll work with the students to enjoy the erosion and fix it. And if the biodiversity starts getting lost, we'll plant as part of our, you know, yearly seasonal lessons. So there's art that's also been, the art teachers have also been important, because highlighting like 125 words for water in LA and putting that on the wall, and, you know, putting a big emerald necklace medallion and kind of branding the schools and making sure everyone feels part of it. So art, science, language, and then the teachers who are signing out the Boulder classrooms, I think, are from many different disciplines. But I think it's just time spent on campus, like having people be familiar with us as a nonprofit interstitial group, and knowing that we're there to roll up our sleeves and, you know, clean something up, or if a rain garden isn't adequate and makes a big mudslide, we're there the next morning. You know, it's adaptive management. It's just this feeling of we're all in this together, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's just, you know, if something doesn't work, let's take that as an educational opportunity. So it's been, I don't know if that's answering your question, but it's like a pinwheel. There's many different ways to find a champion, and each school has its own story, but there's always people who really want to be part of this.
Well, I want to come back to the teacher part, because that was part of my question, but you started hitting on the area of operations and maintenance and like what that looks like for each of these schools. And it's really different, as you said, because these are living systems and they're not just plants and trees. They tend to be, or we're striving more towards the ecosystems. And you've kind of presented a number of ways that's been done on school campuses, large and small, connected and kind of smaller, or you know, on their own. And the continued maintenance, right, is really important, because we're counting on these projects to perform a function, to provide benefits, and yet we're putting them in to benefit the students here. And those are the curriculum connections. And so the training of who's maintaining these, who's becoming the stewards, becomes really important. Like, what does that training look like? And you've mentioned over time, folks are becoming familiar with that. So I guess I'm wondering, do you have like a formalized way that you're training folks, or is it, yeah, how does that happen? And because there's some really interesting workforce development components that come with that. And that's one of the questions that I noticed in the chat, sort of like, how is, you know, the training happening, and what does this lead to? And so can you speak a little bit to that? And I want to come back to you, Emma, to kind of look at what you've learned from your role and how that's working.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the most important thing we can do as a collective, is get buy-in from the boards of education, you know, that the outdoor learning, especially in California, is as important as a new computer program. If a student is overheated at lunch and it takes 2 times that amount of time they've been exposed to heat to calm down and be able to concentrate, doesn't matter how next level the computer or the curriculum is. So it's really making sure the incredible academic and mental health and physical fitness benefits are genuinely understood by the boards of education, work like what Earth Economics and Laura is doing to show the benefits, and then helping create a partnership. What I've heard over and over again, it's some sort of foundation, corporate philanthropy, or maybe a quotient of a CAL FIRE grant where we're allowed to do education and outreach. But we've got to stop just taking wisps of things. There's some ongoing care funding in the Safe Clean Water, but probably not quite the right amount. So I think as a collective, codifying the role that the people who are caring. We do urban forestry training, we do recycled wood training, we do natural infrastructure, bioswale and rain garden care training. We do pest, if there's any pest management to deal with. And I think we are training parents at our monthly events. We're training high school students. We train them, and if someone loves what they're doing as a volunteer, we'll hire them and keep training them further, like we heard this morning earlier. But I would really like to see, we're looking right now for some funding to do a guidebook on caring for these spaces and working together with examples that have been successful. And I say jokingly, like, we never leave as a nonprofit. Once we open a site, we're there, we just never leave, because we haven't successfully created a separate autonomous unit at the school that fulfills the roles that we're currently playing. And maybe that's okay, but I just want to call that out, because so many nonprofits are leading the charge on these things. And we need to institutionalize some of this knowledge and make it more sustainable long-term within the school districts, especially in Title I, all the benefits that we need there.
So on that point, I'm going to kind of give a plug for our Redesign LA process or program, in that helping community-based organizations who are in the community wanting to do projects, and many of them are wanting to do school greening projects. We're helping to build their capacity to understand sort of what that means and how to do it, and then who to connect into. And so from this symposium, we've got a lot of resources out there that we can start plugging and playing in a kind of a shared space. Our community-based organizations are really important to the work that all of us are doing in school greening. They often have relationships with schools and are already kind of working with the community. And so they can be a real asset to the work, and even, help to lead some of these efforts that we need to see happening at a much larger scale. So let's talk more about that too. Emma, in terms of the operations and maintenance, it's amazing to have a whole team within a school district and an agency that's devoted to that. I mean, we know that there's some movement here in different school districts in that direction. I think we can learn a lot from what you all have learned that is working, and the different roles. What can you share about sort of the maintenance training? Because again, that comes back to the performance of these landscapes that we're counting on. There's a workforce development component. And you also mentioned the sensors. And the sensors is a really important data point for us to keep in mind in terms of that performance. Like, we heard earlier this morning, like, how many birds are coming through this space? I mean, that's a really important data point. How much water can you capture? Claire, that was one of your key things that you needed to kind of think about. So all that data is really important to helping us know what maintenance is needed, and what maintenance is needed indicates what training is needed. But then what do we do with that data that we're learning from the maintenance? In my mind, it needs to go back into the design process. We need to do better designs, or we need to, manage it adaptively in terms of bringing more or less resources depending on what's being stewarded and by whom. So can you talk a little bit about what you all have been learning and what that looks like for workforce development?
Sure. So the city of Philadelphia is like that they hosted, there is a green stormwater infrastructure maintenance training program. It's a national program, and the city hosted a training in the city good 10 years ago. It might be long. I think it's more like 5 years ago. So our contractors are trained through this certification program. We were, during COVID, we experienced, just like any other community, a real struggle to get trained staff and to find a solution for this. We have a huge population of students graduating our schools, and we paid for a pilot program to get a small cohort of students to actually get trained and certified through this green infrastructure maintenance training program to expand the workforce available to do this maintenance, to have a better trajectory. And the landscape maintenance field is always understaffed, but the trajectory to higher paid jobs is always an issue. So we are hoping this pilot program would help students who are interested in doing this work to have a higher level training, to get them trained to additional, to be able to get additional training, such as a pesticide applicator or an arborist certification, things like that. So that's one of the strategies we are working on, but also to provide better training with our facility staff to better understand these systems. As I mentioned, that part of the maintenance hurdle is not really, oh, we need to weed this garden, but we really need to expand the understanding of these systems so our staff does not damage these systems. So part of our in-house training is really training our facility staff on what green infrastructure is, what stormwater management is, what these systems look like, what are the components of these systems. And it actually has been really successful in the back and forth communications with our building engineers and our facility areas managers to talk to me about issues that are occurring, because we have so many sites that a lot of issues could go unnoticed, and now they're better aware of how they're supposed to function, what's supposed to happen on these sites, who to talk to, how to get these systems fixed. So we have a better dialogue with the people who are on the ground. I walk with them and teach them about things that they can do, things that we do. So we have partnerships with now our building engineers, so they don't feel overwhelmed about the work that is there, but feel empowered to do different tasks on their schoolyard with support from us.
Yeah, that's great that there's a lot of overlap and a lot of co-learning happening from that process. It sounds like that's one way to kind of keep things moving forward and kind of allow for those staff changes to happen. At this point, you probably have a lot of, and actually all of you have a lot of projects that have been in the ground now for at least 5 years, probably longer, correct? Evelyn, I know you all have been doing this for a number of years. What are you finding in terms of the maturity of these projects? Are you finding that the maintenance has kept up with the evolution of the projects, and has maintenance, we would expect some change in maintenance to be needed. What are you finding in your projects?
A little bit of both. I think that we have some projects that are 10 plus years now and do need a little bit of love. But we also have some projects that have been around for almost the same timeline and they have been kept up. I think it's just, the priority of each district and agency that we've been working with. And now whenever we do develop MOUs, we try to include that in the language, that there has to be a maintenance component, because before we just assumed that once we funded it and it got built, that they would provide the maintenance. But in some cases we didn't see it being done. So now it's something that we make sure is included.
Great. Those maintenance manuals are always helpful. It's nice when they're connected to like that monitoring data too. So you can generate the data to inform the monitoring. We got a nice little loop going on there. And that helps us understand the performance of all of these projects over time. And we're at time, but I have to ask another question because I know it's out there. We've been focusing in on school greening projects, and I keep, reiterating, we got to be making sure that these projects are happening in the spaces where the students are spending most of their day. Claire's given us amazing examples of what that looks like throughout a campus, around the campus. There is this question, though, when we do the school greening projects, how we can manage more stormwater. And I always go to, we need to be making sure that we're managing the stormwater that's being generated on these campuses first before we even look at taking offsite water. And before we even take offsite water, let's manage the water where it's falling, like upstream, right? Because that's an opportunity. And Claire, I know you've been looking at this, and Emma, I know we've talked about this. That gives us an opportunity to create those safe routes to schools that have the shade canopy, that have the multimodal aspect to it. And so when we get the question about bringing offsite stormwater onto schools, after we've done all of that, right? Because we're managing the water where it falls upstream before it gets to school, it's cleaner. What do we need to be thinking about when we bring in offsite water on school campuses? Emma, I know you all have been thinking about this for a while, and Claire, I suspect you have too. So we'll end with that question because we're going to come back and dive deeper into this. There's a lot more we can dive into. So Emma, after we've done the work on the school campus and we've created the tree canopy to bike and walk to school on the hottest day of the year, what do we need to be thinking about before we bring stormwater offsite?
It goes a lot back to design. So we're an urban site, so we have a couple major maintenance issues. One is trash. To understand how trash flows to your site, if you are a recipient of the downhill, that's one of your major management issues that you're gonna see when having stormwater come onto your property. So understanding that factor and designing elements into your design to capture that trash. And so what we do is a lot of times we have inlets that are fitted with bags that you can take out and clean the trash. So we do that quarterly. All of our what we call green inlets are fitted with those bags. That's the first major management hurdle to overcome, and to understand other major catastrophe, like you have a water main break, or you have some other event where you have contaminants coming into your system, because these are living systems, that those contaminants could wipe out your whole pallet or could destroy your subsurface system. So mechanisms in your design to actually intercept anything that comes into the system before it actually gets to your main part. So do you need a forebay in front of your like rain garden that would capture any major sediment? Or do you need some clean out before it gets to a subsurface system where you can come in and where that contaminant would be able to be removed before you get to your system that could be inaccessible underground and could do a lot of damage. So there's a lot of design elements that you can think about, but also better understanding. For us, we get actually additional funding to do offsite, so it makes it a cost benefit. So we are able to design a better system. But for us, it actually feeds our plants. So our plants actually sometimes do better with the additional water. So we just look at the different strategies that we can apply before the issues occur in the design, so we're able to just receive water and not all the other issues.
Thank you.
I would key off that and just say the design sequence and kind of like the treatment train of all these little complex spaces. Like every one of our outdoor classrooms is an infiltration element, and ditto the play. So making it so that there's risk mitigation when water comes in, and having the adaptive management attitude towards, we've seen some crazy storms these last couple of years, and we literally tried our most recent rain garden with the recent hurricane, and it was the day after we finished our garden and then the hurricane happened. So being of the mindset to run and adaptively manage and look, but I think risk mitigation, if you work with good engineers, is very easy to manage. And as Philadelphia, we need to ensure there's adequate long-term funding, not just 2 or 3 years of funding, but adequate funding. And maybe the most important thing I'd say, though, because of the way our contours are in LA, a lot of schools are on slopes, and many, especially Title I schools, are already getting offsite water. It's an academic question. They're literally flooding. So the offsite water has been coming for decades from the adjacent city or county with no recourse to the school. So we really don't have a problem in that sense. We just have to address that for the schools. It's already coming, the offsite water.
Thanks, Claire, for bringing that up, because Evelyn, that was sort of what you were kind of alluding to in terms of some of the issues on some of your schools you're working on. So do you have any final thoughts for us to keep in mind in terms of what you're looking at and what you're looking for in terms of offsite water?
No, I think, we wouldn't be able to do these projects without these partnerships. And, it's working in greenskeeping schools and also creating stormwater projects. It's something that has to be a partnership amongst all those that are involved.
I think that's a great way to end this panel. Thank you all for all the work that you do and for sharing some of your lessons learned and inspiring us to kind of keep moving forward in partnership on these projects. So with that, I'll pass it back to Clara Sophia, and I think we'll look forward to seeing you again in another event or at one of our other.
Great, thank you all so much. That was so much good. I was writing constantly during that panel. We are going to move in these last 15 minutes into breakout rooms briefly. So we have the breakout rooms set up by the watershed areas that we've been sharing on the screen throughout the event. So select the watershed area that best fits you. If you're coming to us from outside of LA County, there will be a group for other. So we'll be launching those breakout rooms, but these are the questions that we want you all to be putting in the chat in your breakout room, and then get started actually answering them and having some conversations. And our goal here, really, through introducing yourself, sharing what motivated you to attend the event today, maybe sharing some questions you're left with or things you'd like to do a deeper dive on, is also that this gives you a chance to connect with some of the other attendees in the room and reach out to someone. We'll have watershed coordinators in the rooms to introduce themselves, and they can be a resource for you as well on following up, thinking about future projects, if you have questions, if you have ideas moving forward. So we will be there, just started again after the breakout rooms, but we were recording before the breakout rooms, and we'll be sharing those back out. I do want to just plug that there are stormwater, green school and stormwater tours being led by the Safe Clean Water Program watershed coordinators. So we actually have an exit survey at the close of this Zoom when you X out. And so if you could just please take a few minutes, give us some answers to those. And one of the answers includes asking if you want to be connected with your watershed coordinator for those that are in LA County. And that can be a way that your watershed coordinator can make sure that you're in the loop on those upcoming tour dates. With that, I want to just say thank you all so much for attending today. And again, we do want to thank our funder, RLF, for supporting this great event. And we're looking forward to hopefully having all of us back in a room talking about this soon. So thank you very much.
I just want to add thank you so much to our interpreters, Gabriela Moya and Pablo Manafra. Without you, we could have
thank you,
so thank you so much.
And thank you to the entire council team who made this happen. Drew, Belle, Eileen, everyone, and all the watershed coordinators for jumping in here. So
it's really Clara Sophia who deserves the thanks. She put this whole thing together, and Belle who handled all the tech and web. Thank you guys. It's a great event.
Thanks, everyone. It's a great team effort. Great to see the watershed coordinators participate. And thanks, everyone, for bringing your questions and your lessons learned and all your great inspirational stories to this discussion. We're looking forward to hosting more of these. Give us some suggestions of some deep dives, and we'll look forward to connecting in the future.